Hey, tonight we're going to imagine what it was actually like to be a caveman. Not the goofy cartoon version with clubs and grunting, but real life in the Ice Age. If you enjoy these little history trips, I'd really appreciate a like or follow. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I always love seeing people drifting off to sleep from all over the world. Okay, get yourself comfortable. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your body sink into the bed or couch or floor or wherever you've decided to crash tonight. Because we're heading way, way back. Back to a time before electricity, before houses, before anything except survival, family, and fire. Ready? Let's see what it was really like to wake up in the Paleolithic. So you've just opened your eyes in a cave. Congratulations, you're alive, which is no small feat here. The first thing you feel is the cold. Not a chilly breeze, but that deep, biting cold that crawls straight into your bones. There's no insulation except what nature gives you. You're wrapped in an old animal hide, probably deer or elk, tanned and softened as best your people can manage. But it's stiff. It smells like old smoke and sweat, and it's barely enough. Your mattress is a pile of dried grass and reeds arranged on the rocky floor. Someone spent time gathering it, flattening it, making sure it's somewhat even. But it's rough. It rustles and crackles with every tiny movement, sending dry stems poking into your ribs. Every time you shift, you sound like a walking hay bale. The air is, let's call it rich. Layers of wood smoke from the old fire, the damp, mossy scent of the cave walls, the musky tang of unwashed humans who haven't invented soap yet. Under it all is the faint but permanent note of animal fat, smeared on everything to keep out the wet and cold. Functional. Not exactly Febreze. You lie there for a moment listening. The cave has its own voice. Somewhere deeper inside, water drips steadily, echoing like a slow metronome in the dark. Around you, about 20 other people are also waking up. There's quiet snoring, someone coughing, a baby making those soft, whimpering baby noises. Outside the cave mouth, the world is waking too. You can hear birds calling, muffled by the thick hide that serves as a doorway flap. Maybe the distant crackle of frost or the hush of wind through bare trees. You don't really want to get up, but you have no choice. Because in this world, if you're not moving, you're not eating. Your body feels wrecked. Every muscle aches from yesterday's hunt, or the miles walked gathering roots and nuts. Your feet, calloused thick like leather, are still sore from scrambling over rocks. Your back has that special ground-sleeping stiffness that no chiropractor can fix. But you're alive. You're with your family, and you've made it through another freezing night in a world that doesn't care whether you survive. The morning routine begins with the fire, or rather what's left of it. Last night's carefully banked coals have either died completely or are hiding under a blanket of ash, glowing faintly like buried treasure. Someone, probably the designated firekeeper, is already crouched over the pit, blowing gently on the embers. Their breath creates little puffs of steam in the cold air, and you can hear the soft whoosh of air being pushed through pursed lips. Fire is everything here. It's warmth, light, protection, and the difference between raw meat and dinner. Losing the fire means starting over with flint and tinder, which on a damp morning like this could take the better part of an hour. The firekeeper knows this, which is why they're treating those coals like they're coaxing a shy animal back to life. You stretch and your joints pop like bubble wrap. The person next to you, your sister maybe, or a cousin, mumbles something unintelligible and pulls her hide over her head. Smart move. But you're already too awake, too aware of your full bladder and the gnawing hollow in your stomach. The call of nature in the Ice Age is, well, natural. There's no indoor plumbing, no heated bathroom, no soft toilet paper. There's a designated spot outside the cave, downwind and downstream from where you get your water. Privacy is a luxury you can't afford when survival is the priority, but humans have always been modest creatures. You grab your outer hide and prepare for the morning's first adventure into the elements. Stepping outside is like walking into a slap. The air is so cold it burns your lungs, and the ground is hard as stone under your feet. Frost has turned everything into a crystal palace. Every blade of grass, every fallen leaf, every spider web sparkles like it's been dipped in diamonds. Beautiful, sure, but beauty doesn't keep you warm. The landscape stretches out before you, vast and empty and utterly indifferent. Rolling hills covered in sparse, hardy vegetation. A few scattered trees, their branches bare and black against the pale sky. In the distance, maybe you can make out the dark shapes of animals, a herd of something large, moving slowly across the horizon like ships on an endless sea. This is your world. No roads, no buildings, no fences. Just you and the land and whatever you can make of it. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. Terrifying because there's nowhere to hide from the elements, from predators, from the simple fact that nature wants you dead. Liberating because every horizon is yours to explore, every valley a potential new home. Back inside the cave, the fire has caught. Flames lick hungrily at dry twigs and small branches, casting dancing shadows on the rough walls. The smoke rises toward the cave ceiling, most of it finding its way out through cracks and openings, but enough lingers to make your eyes water slightly. You've grown used to it. Smoke is the price you pay for warmth. The morning meal is whatever's left from yesterday, plus whatever can be quickly gathered or caught. There might be some dried berries, tough as leather but still sweet. A few nuts, cracked open with stones and picked clean. If you're lucky, someone saved a piece of cooked meat from yesterday's kill, wrapped in leaves and kept cool in the back of the cave. But probably not. Food doesn't keep well here, and your people have learned to eat when they can, fast when they must. Your stomach growls, reminding you that today, like every day, begins with the fundamental question: where will the next meal come from? Around you, the cave is slowly coming to life. Children emerge from their piles of hides like small, grumpy bears. Adults stretch and yawn and begin the day's planning. Who will hunt? Who will gather? Who will stay behind to tend the fire and watch the young ones? These aren't casual decisions. Every choice could mean the difference between a full belly and hunger, between safety and danger. The weather matters. Is it clear enough for a long hunt, or should you stay close to shelter? The season matters. What plants are ready to harvest? What animals are in their prime? Your people have been making these calculations for thousands of years, passed down through generations of survivors. They know which berries are safe and which will kill you. They know how to read the sky for coming storms, how to track animals by their signs, how to find water even when none is visible. This knowledge is your inheritance, hard-won wisdom written in the survival of your ancestors. You carry it in your bones, in your instincts, in the careful way you scan the horizon for threats and opportunities. Someone has started working on tools. The soft scraping sound of stone on stone fills the cave as they sharpen a spear point or nap a new cutting edge. These tools are everything, your claws and fangs in a world full of creatures better equipped for violence than you are. Every chip of flint, every bound handle, every sharpened point represents hours of careful work. You watch the toolmaker's hands, steady and sure despite the cold. They know exactly where to strike the stone to get the shape they want. It's an art form, really, this ancient craft of turning rocks into life-saving instruments. One wrong hit and hours of work are ruined. But get it right, and you have a blade that can cut through hide, a point that can bring down prey, a scraper that can prepare the materials for the next tool. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic. Tap, tap, pause, examine, tap, tap. Each strike purposeful, considered. Around the cave, others are doing their own morning preparations. Someone is checking the condition of the hides that serve as blankets and clothing. Someone else is sorting through yesterday's gathered roots and nuts, separating the good from the questionable. It's a quiet, focused activity. No chatter, no unnecessary noise. Everyone understands that sound carries in the morning air, and you never know what might be listening. The last thing you want is to announce your presence to a hungry predator looking for an easy meal. As the fire grows stronger, the cave begins to warm slightly. Not warm by modern standards, but warm enough that you can move without shivering. Warm enough to start planning the day ahead. The light from the flames dances across the cave walls, revealing the rough texture of the stone, the dark openings that lead deeper into the earth. Some of these caves go back for miles, winding through the rock like frozen rivers. Your people have explored some of them, finding underground streams and hidden chambers. But mostly, you stay in the front area, close to the entrance, close to escape routes, close to the world you know. The morning light is growing stronger outside. Through the hide covering the entrance, you can see the pale glow that means dawn is breaking. Soon, the real work of the day will begin. But for now, there's this moment of quiet preparation, of gathering strength for whatever challenges await. Your body is warming up, your muscles loosening from their overnight stiffness. The aches are still there, they're always there, but they're becoming manageable. Your stomach still growls, but it's a familiar sensation. Hunger is a constant companion here, not the sharp emergency it would be in a modern world of abundance. You think about the day ahead. If the weather holds, there might be a chance to hunt. The tracks spotted yesterday suggested a small herd of deer or elk moving through the valley. With luck and skill, your people might be able to bring one down. That would mean meat for several days, hides for warmth, bones for tools. But hunting is never guaranteed. The animals are fast, alert, and smart. They have their own survival instincts, their own knowledge of the landscape. Many hunts end with empty hands and tired legs, with the long walk back to the cave and the gnawing knowledge that tomorrow you'll have to try again. Gathering is more reliable but less rewarding. There are always roots to dig, nuts to collect, berries to pick when they're in season. It's steady work that fills the belly without the excitement and danger of the hunt. Most days, gathering is what keeps you alive. But today feels different. Maybe it's the quality of the light, or the way the wind has shifted, or some instinct too deep for words. Today feels like a hunting day. Today feels like a day when the ancient bargain between human cunning and animal strength might tip in your favor. The fire crackles and spits, sending sparks spiraling up toward the cave ceiling. The sound is comforting, familiar, the heartbeat of your small civilization. As long as the fire burns, you have a center, a home, a place to return to when the day's work is done. Around you, your people are beginning to stir more purposefully. Quiet conversations in the ancient tongue that predates all modern languages. Discussions of weather and game, and the thousand small decisions that shape survival. These are your companions in this harsh world, bound together by necessity and kinship, and the simple fact that alone, none of you would last a week. Together, you've made it through countless nights like this one. Together, you'll face whatever today brings. And if you're very lucky, very careful, and very good at the ancient arts of staying alive, you'll make it through another night to see another dawn. The morning is calling, and there's no snooze button in the Ice Age. Time to face the world. Time to get up. You groan as you push yourself off that charming bed of poky grass. Every joint protests. Your knees crack, your back twinges, your neck makes an alarming little pop. Modern humans complain about bad mattresses. Try sleeping on rocks for your entire life. You stand, bare feet pressing against cold stone. Even in winter, caves stay at a fairly steady temperature, warmer than the icy winds outside, but still cold enough to make your teeth chatter. Your calluses are thick as boot leather, built up over decades of walking on everything from sharp gravel to frozen ground. But the cold seeps in anyway, creeping up through your bones like slow poison. The cave floor beneath your feet tells its own story. Worn smooth in the high traffic areas by generations of bare feet, rougher in the corners where people sleep. There are slight depressions where the fire pits have been dug and redug over the years, dark stains where countless meals have been prepared, tiny fragments of flint and bone scattered like confetti from decades of tool making. Your feet know every irregularity, every bump and hollow. In the darkness, you could navigate this space blindfolded, guided by the familiar geography of home. That slight rise near the entrance where water pools during heavy rains. The smooth boulder that serves as a backrest during the evening meal. The narrow passage that leads deeper into the cave system where the temperature stays constant year-round and emergency supplies are cached. First priority? The fire. Always the fire. There's no central heating. No, just flick it on. If the fire dies, so does the group. It's that simple, that brutal, that final. Someone was on watch last night, making sure the embers didn't go out. Fire duty rotates through the group because everyone understands the stakes. The person on watch sits close enough to feel the heat, far enough to avoid the smoke. They feed the fire just enough to keep it breathing. Not too much, because fuel is precious and you don't want to waste wood during the long winter months. Not too little, because starting over from scratch in the morning is a nightmare nobody wants to face. The fire watcher has their own rhythm, their own relationship with the flames. Every hour or so they'll add a piece of wood, chosen carefully from the pile of dry fuel stacked nearby. They know which woods burn fast and hot, which ones smolder slowly through the night. Pine for quick heat, oak for long-lasting coals, birch bark for emergency kindling. It's an art form, really, this ancient dance between human and flame. During the darkest hours before dawn, when the cold seeps deepest into the cave and everyone's body temperature drops to its lowest point, the fire watcher might allow themselves to doze fitfully. But they never sleep deeply. Some part of their mind stays alert, listening for the subtle changes in the fire's voice that signal danger. The crackling that means the flames are healthy, the hissing that means moisture in the wood, the silence that means the fire is dying. Now it's your job, or someone else's nearby, to coax those dull red coals back into life. You squat near the shallow fire pit, carefully lined with stones to hold the heat and reflect it back toward the cave. These aren't just any stones. They've been selected over time for their heat retention properties and their tendency not to explode when heated. River rocks are dangerous because trapped moisture can turn to steam and cause them to shatter violently. The stones around your fire pit are dry, dense specimens that have proven themselves reliable over countless heating cycles. The ground around the fire pit is blackened and smooth from generations of fires and meals, worn down by countless feet, polished by the daily rituals of survival. The earth here is different from the rest of the cave floor, harder, more compact, infused with ash and charcoal and the detritus of human habitation. If you dug down, you'd find layers of history, old fire pits from years past, broken tools discarded and forgotten, fragments of bone from meals eaten by people whose names are lost to time. You see the glowing embers, pulsing softly like a sleeping heart. That's hope right there, buried under ash and time. Each ember represents potential, the difference between warmth and cold, between cooked food and raw, between light and darkness. You treat them with the respect they deserve because you've seen what happens when the fire dies completely. The long, frustrating process of starting over with flint and steel, the precious time lost, the risk of failure when your fingers are too cold to work properly. You arrange dry twigs and curls of birch bark around the edges of the ember bed because you know birch catches quick and burns hot, while oak burns slow and strong. Birch bark is nature's paper, thin layers that peel away in papery sheets perfect for kindling. Even when wet, the oils in birch bark will catch fire readily. Oak, on the other hand, burns with steady, reliable heat that lasts for hours. Your people have this knowledge memorized, passed down from parent to child in an unbroken chain of survival. No one's taking notes. No one's writing instruction manuals. It's all up here, in your head, in your hands, in the muscle memory of staying alive. The kindling arrangement is its own small engineering project. You create a loose structure that allows air to flow through, feeding oxygen to the flames. Too tight and the fire will smother itself. Too loose and the heat will dissipate without catching the larger pieces. The angle matters too. Kindling arranged vertically catches faster than horizontal pieces because fire naturally wants to climb upward. You blow gently on the coals. Not too hard or you'll scatter ash everywhere and bury the precious embers. Not too soft or nothing will happen. Just right, like you're whispering secrets to the fire. The technique is subtle, a steady, controlled breath that feeds oxygen to the embers without disturbing the delicate balance of fuel and air that makes combustion possible. A small wisp of smoke curls up, gray and tentative. This is the moment of truth. Smoke means the embers are hot enough to start the combustion process, but it doesn't guarantee success. You need to maintain that delicate balance, continuing to breathe life into the coals while the kindling starts to catch. Another breath, slightly stronger this time. The glow brightens, spreads, reaches toward the dry bark with invisible fingers. You can feel the heat on your face now, not much but enough to tell you that the fire is waking up. The smoke thickens, changes color from gray to white as the birch bark begins to smolder. Then a flicker of flame, small, fragile, but growing. It dances along the edge of a piece of bark, finding purchase, spreading. Another small flame joins it, then another. The fire is coming back to life, transforming from potential energy to actual heat and light. Relief floods through you and spreads around the cave like the warmth itself. You've done it. You've brought the fire back to life. It's a small victory, but victories are rare here, and you learn to appreciate them. Others start stirring in earnest now, drawn by the promise of heat and the knowledge that today has officially begun. The sound of the awakening fire is like a signal. The soft crackle of catching kindling, the gentle hiss as moisture in the wood turns to steam, the subtle shift in the cave's acoustics as moving air creates tiny currents and eddies. These sounds mean safety, warmth, the beginning of another day of survival. You feel the warmth slowly reach your frozen fingers, your stiff joints, your face that feels like it's made of ice. The sensation is almost painful at first, the contrast between cold and heat making your skin tingle and burn. But it's a good pain, the pain of coming back to life after the small death of a cold night. The smell of smoke thickens, sharp, comforting, primal. It's the smell of civilization, such as it is, the smell of home. Every cave has its own signature scent, determined by the type of wood burned, the minerals in the stone walls, the particular mix of human and animal scents that accumulate over time. This is your smell, your place, your sanctuary in a hostile world. The fire is everything. Its warmth, its light, its safety. It keeps predators wary. Most animals have an instinctive fear of fire, burned into their genetic memory by countless generations of avoiding lightning-struck forests and natural wildfires. The ones that don't fear fire usually learn quickly, after a single encounter with a burning brand wielded by a desperate human. Fire cooks your food, making tough meat digestible and killing the parasites and bacteria that could make you sick. Raw meat is a gamble in this world. Sometimes you win, sometimes you spend days writhing with intestinal distress that could easily kill you if you're unlucky. Cooked meat is insurance, a way to extract maximum nutrition while minimizing risk. Fire hardens your wooden tools, driving out moisture and making the wood denser, stronger, more durable. A spear point hardened in flames will penetrate deeper and hold its edge longer than raw wood. Digging sticks become more effective. Handles become less likely to break at crucial moments. Fire holds your family together, gives you a center point, a reason to return at the end of the day. It's the heart of your small community, the focal point around which all other activities revolve. Meals are prepared here, tools are made here, stories are told here, children are taught here. The fire pit is your town square, your kitchen, your workshop, your entertainment center, all rolled into one. Without fire, you're just another animal shivering in the dark. With it, you're human. That distinction might seem philosophical, but here it's purely practical. Fire is what allows you to live in climates that would otherwise kill you, to eat foods that would otherwise be indigestible, to work with materials that would otherwise be too hard or too brittle to shape. The morning fire ritual has its own rhythm, its own unspoken rules developed over generations of shared living. You don't crowd around it all at once. That blocks the heat from spreading and makes everyone cranky. You take turns warming yourself, then move back to let others closer. The elderly and the children get priority because they feel the cold more keenly and have less body mass to generate their own heat. The sick ones, if there are any, get a spot close to the flames where the warmth can help their bodies fight off whatever ails them. There's a delicate social dance around the fire, an intricate choreography of deference and need. The hunters who will be going out today get preference because they need to warm their muscles and joints for the physical demands ahead. The toolmakers position themselves where the light is best for their detailed work. The food preparers claim the spots with the best access to cooking areas. But nobody pushes, nobody demands. Everyone understands that conflict around the fire is conflict around the source of life itself. Arguments here could literally be fatal if they result in someone being excluded from the warmth. So the negotiations are subtle, polite, guided by unspoken agreements about hierarchy and need. As the fire grows stronger, you start adding larger pieces of wood. Dead branches collected yesterday and stored in the dry part of the cave, carefully selected and prepared for this moment. Each piece is chosen carefully, not too green or it won't catch and will produce choking smoke, not too rotten or it'll just smolder and crumble without providing much heat. The wood selection is another skill passed down through generations. You learn to recognize good burning wood by sight, by smell, by the sound it makes when you tap it with your knuckle. Dry wood sounds hollow and sharp. Wet wood sounds dull and flat. Rotten wood crumbles at the touch. You develop an eye for the perfect piece, dry enough to catch quickly, dense enough to burn long, large enough to produce substantial heat. The wood crackles and spits as it catches, sending sparks spiraling up toward the cave ceiling where they wink out like tiny stars. Each spark is a small celebration, a sign that the fire is healthy and strong. But you watch them carefully too, because sparks that don't die quickly can start unwanted fires in bedding or stored materials. The light from the flames dances across the cave walls, revealing details that darkness hides. The rough texture of the stone, worn smooth in places by countless hands, dark stains where cooking smoke has blackened the rock over generations, creating abstract patterns that shift and change in the moving light. Scratch marks that might be tally marks keeping track of days or seasons, or artistic expression, or just the idle scraping of someone's knife during a long, boring winter evening. Someone feeds the fire a particularly dry piece of pine, and it flares up bright and hot. Pine burns fast and hot, perfect for quick cooking or for adding dramatic light when needed. The sudden brightness illuminates the whole cave, showing you the faces of your family and friends in sharp detail. Weathered faces, marked by sun and wind and the constant vigilance of survival. Lines around the eyes from squinting against bright snow and harsh sunlight. Scars from old injuries, accidents, encounters with dangerous animals. Hands that are rough and calloused, shaped by decades of hard work, but alive, all alive. That's what matters most in this unforgiving world. The faces tell stories. The old woman with the crooked nose, broken years ago in a fall while gathering roots on a steep hillside. The hunter with the three-fingered hand, lost to frostbite during a particularly harsh winter. The child with the burn scar on her arm, a reminder of why you never play too close to the fire. Each mark, each line, each imperfection is evidence of survival, proof that life here is possible despite the constant dangers. These are your people, your tribe, your family in the broadest sense of the word. Some are related by blood, others by choice, all bound together by the simple necessity of mutual survival. You know their habits, their skills, their fears, their strengths. You've shared dangers with them, celebrated successes, mourned losses. In a world where strangers might be enemies, these familiar faces represent safety and belonging. Breakfast is no feast. The word breakfast itself is probably too grand for what you're about to eat. Someone reheats scraps of last night's meat on sharpened sticks, holding them over the flames until the fat sizzles and pops. It's tough and chewy, yesterday's leftovers always are, but warm, and that alone is a minor miracle in a world where most food is eaten cold or not at all. The meat is probably deer, killed 2 days ago in a hunt that took most of the day and involved the entire able-bodied population of your group. It was a good hunt, successful, but not without cost. One of the hunters twisted his ankle badly during the chase and is still limping. Another took a glancing blow from the deer's antlers, leaving a painful bruise across his ribs. But the animal was brought down, and that means food for the group. Nothing was wasted from that kill. The choice cuts, the tenderloin, the backstrap, the organ meats rich in vitamins, were eaten first while fresh. The tougher pieces were cut into strips and hung over the fire to dry, slowly curing in the smoke. The bones were cracked open for marrow, that rich, fatty delicacy that provides essential calories. Then the bones themselves were saved for tools, awls, needles, knife handles. The hide was scraped clean of every bit of meat and fat, then stretched on a frame made of branches to dry. Once properly cured, it would become clothing, blankets, shelter, rope. The sinews were carefully removed and dried for use as thread and binding material. Even the hooves were boiled down to make glue, useful for attaching spear points and arrow fletching. This morning's portion is small, maybe a piece the size of your palm if you're lucky. You chew it slowly, working your jaw muscles, breaking down the tough fibers. It tastes like smoke and salt and survival. Not bad, really. Just different from what modern taste buds might expect. There's no seasoning beyond the wood smoke and the natural flavors of the meat, but your palate has adapted to appreciate subtleties that would be lost on someone accustomed to processed foods. The texture is chewy, requiring real work to break down. This isn't tender grain-fed beef, This is wild game, lean and muscular from a life of constant movement and vigilance. Your teeth are strong from a lifetime of this kind of eating, your jaw muscles well developed from the constant work of processing tough foods. A few nuts and roots from yesterday's gathering expedition get passed around. The nuts are hard to crack and harder to extract. You need a good stone and patience to get the meat out without crushing it. The technique involves finding just the right spot to apply pressure, using a smooth river rock as an anvil and a harder stone as a hammer. Too much force and you pulverize the nut meat along with the shell. Too little and the shell refuses to crack. The nut meat, when you finally extract it, is rich and oily, packed with the fats your body craves for insulation and energy. Each nut represents a significant investment of time and effort, making every morsel precious. You eat them slowly, savoring the richness, the satisfying crunch, the burst of flavor. The roots are fibrous and bland, but they fill your stomach and provide the carbohydrates that fuel your daily activities. These aren't the refined starches of modern agriculture, but complex carbohydrates that release energy slowly, sustaining you through long hours of physical work. Some are sweet, others bitter, all nutritious in their own way. The gathering of these roots requires its own specialized knowledge. You need to know which plants have edible roots, when they're at their nutritional peak, how to prepare them to maximize digestibility. Some need to be boiled to remove toxins. Others can be eaten raw. A few require special processing, pounding, leaching, fermentation to make them safe and palatable. Someone has saved a handful of dried berries, wrinkled and dark but still sweet. They're divided carefully, each person getting just a few. These berries were gathered during the brief summer season when the bushes were heavy with fruit. Most were eaten fresh, but the surplus was dried for winter consumption. They represent foresight, planning, the ability to think beyond immediate needs. The berries burst with concentrated sweetness on your tongue, a rare treat in a diet that's mostly protein and starch. But more than that, they provide essential vitamins that prevent scurvy and other nutritional diseases. Your ancestors didn't understand vitamins in the modern sense, but they knew empirically that certain foods prevented certain ailments. Nobody's getting stuffed. The idea of eating until you're uncomfortably full is a luxury you can't afford. You eat until the immediate hunger pangs subside, then save the rest for later. Because you don't know what you'll find today. You don't know if the hunt will be successful, if the gathering will turn up enough food, if the weather will cooperate with your plans. Food is fuel here, not entertainment. There's no eating for pleasure, no comfort food, no elaborate cuisine. Every calorie consumed must be justified by the energy it provides for survival activities. Waste is not just discouraged, it's potentially fatal for the group. But that doesn't mean there's no pleasure in eating. There's satisfaction in the warmth of cooked meat on a cold morning. There's joy in the sweetness of those precious berries. There's comfort in sharing food with your family, in the simple act of nourishment that allows life to continue for another day. And as you chew, the talk starts. Quiet, serious, purposeful. Who's going hunting today? Who's staying to gather? Who'll remain behind to watch the children and tend the fire? These aren't casual suggestions. They're life and death decisions that require careful consideration of everyone's strengths, weaknesses, and current condition. The discussion begins with an assessment of the weather. Someone steps outside briefly to test the air, check the sky, feel the wind direction. They return with a report. Clear for now, but clouds building to the west. Wind shifting to the north, which could mean a change coming. Temperature dropping, which affects how far the hunting party can range before needing to return to shelter. The hunting party needs to be strong and fast, but not so large that they scare away the game or consume too many resources if the hunt is unsuccessful. Usually it's 3 or 4 of the best hunters, armed with spears and an intimate knowledge of animal behavior. They'll need to track their prey, anticipate its movements, work together to bring it down. It's dangerous work that requires split-second coordination and absolute trust between team members. Today's hunt will focus on the deer herd spotted yesterday evening, grazing in the valley about 2 hours' walk from the cave. The tracks were fresh, the animals appeared healthy and well-fed, and their behavior suggested they weren't being pressured by other predators. All good signs for a successful hunt. But hunting is never guaranteed. The animals are fast, alert, and smart. They have their own survival instincts, their own knowledge of the landscape, their own strategies for avoiding predators. A spooked herd can disappear into the forest faster than humans can follow. A wounded animal can turn dangerous, fighting back with antlers, hooves, and the desperate strength of something fighting for its life. Many hunts end with empty hands and tired legs, with the long walk back to the cave and the gnawing knowledge that tomorrow you'll have to try again. The hunters know this, accept it as part of the reality of their world. Success is celebrated, but failure is not mourned. It's simply part of the process. The gathering team is usually larger but stays closer to home. They know where the good root patches are, which trees have nuts ready to fall, where the edible plants grow thickest. It's less glamorous than hunting, but more reliable. You might not get the thrill and calories of a successful hunt, but you're less likely to come home completely empty-handed. Today's gathering will focus on a grove of oak trees about an hour's walk up the valley, where the acorns should be reaching maturity. Acorns are a valuable food source, rich in carbohydrates and fats, storable for long periods if properly processed. But they require significant preparation, including grinding and leaching to remove the bitter tannins that make them inedible in their raw state. The gathering team will also check the usual spots for late-season berries, edible roots, and useful materials for tools and shelter maintenance. It's methodical work that requires patience and extensive knowledge of the local ecosystem. Every plant has its season, its preferred growing conditions, its particular uses. Someone needs to stay behind to keep the fire going, watch the young ones, and work on the endless tasks that keep a small community functioning. Maintaining and sharpening tools, preparing hides for use, weaving baskets and cordage, all the detail work that modern people would consider hobbies, but which here are essential survival skills. The fire tender has one of the most important jobs. The fire must never be allowed to die completely, because starting over from scratch is time-consuming and potentially dangerous. The fire tender feeds the flames throughout the day, banking the coals when fuel runs low, adjusting the airflow to maintain optimal burning conditions. Child watching requires its own specialized skills. Children in this environment face constant dangers. They could wander too close to the fire, eat poisonous plants, fall from dangerous heights, encounter predators. The adult assigned to watch them must be vigilant, patient, and quick to react to potential problems. But child watching isn't just about preventing disasters. It's also about education, passing down the vast body of knowledge that each new generation needs to survive. The tool maintenance crew has their own crucial role. Spear points become dull with use and need regular sharpening. Bindings loosen and need tightening. Handles wear smooth and need roughening for better grip. A poorly maintained tool can fail at a crucial moment, potentially costing someone their life. Hide preparation is another essential task. The process is labor-intensive and time-sensitive. Wait too long and the hide becomes unusable. But properly prepared hides are essential for clothing, shelter, containers, and rope. The weather plays a huge role in these decisions. Through the cave entrance, you can see that the morning sky is clear, but that doesn't mean much. Weather changes fast in this climate, and getting caught in the open during a sudden storm can be deadly. Someone with a good sense for reading the sky, usually one of the elders who has observed weather patterns for decades, gives their opinion on what the day might bring. The weather reader examines the clouds, their height and movement, their color and density. They consider the season, the recent weather patterns, the phase of the moon, all factors that influence atmospheric conditions. Today's forecast is cautiously optimistic. The morning is clear with light winds from the south. The clouds building to the west appear to be high and thin, not the heavy, dark formations that signal approaching storms. But weather can change quickly, so the hunting party will need to stay alert and be prepared to return quickly if conditions deteriorate. The health of the group matters too. If someone is nursing an injury, they stay behind. If one of the regular hunters is feeling sick, the whole hunting strategy might change. This morning's health assessment reveals a few concerns. The hunter who twisted his ankle 2 days ago is still limping, though he insists he's ready for action. The elder with the persistent cough is having a bad morning, wheezing and short of breath. One of the children has a fever and needs watching. These health issues ripple through the day's planning. The injured hunter will stay behind to work on tool maintenance, despite his protests. The sick elder will rest near the fire, conserving strength. The feverish child will be watched closely, offered warm liquids and kept comfortable. These discussions happen quietly, without drama or heated argument. Everyone understands that survival depends on making smart choices, not satisfying individual preferences. You might want to hunt today, but if you're nursing a sprained ankle, you're gathering instead. No arguments, no hurt feelings, just pragmatic assessment of what gives the group the best chance of making it through another day. The decision-making process is democratic but efficient. Everyone's opinion is heard, but the final choices are made by those with the most experience and the best judgment. Age brings wisdom here, and the elders' voices carry special weight in discussions about strategy and safety. The children, they're learning not just what to do, but how to think about survival, how to weigh risks against benefits, how to make the calculations that keep people alive. Some of the children are old enough to help with gathering. They know which plants are safe to eat and which ones will kill you. They can spot the signs that indicate a good root patch or a tree heavy with nuts. They understand the basics of seasonal timing, of reading animal tracks, of recognizing weather patterns. But they're not strong enough for the serious work yet, not experienced enough to make the split-second decisions that hunting requires. The youngest ones will stay in the cave with whoever's on child-watching duty. They'll play quiet games that subtly teach important survival skills, stalk and hide games that develop stealth and observation, tool-making games that build hand-eye coordination, storytelling games that encode essential knowledge in memorable forms. Every fairy tale, every song, every seemingly simple story carries information about the world. Which animals are dangerous and how to avoid them. Which plants are edible and when they're ready to harvest. How to read weather signs. How to find water. How to treat common injuries. The stories are entertainment, but they're also textbooks, reference manuals, survival guides, all wrapped up in memorable narratives. As the planning continues, people start preparing for their assigned tasks. The hunters check their spears, examining each point for chips or cracks, testing the bindings that hold the stone or bone points to the wooden shafts. A loose spearhead at the crucial moment could mean the difference between a successful hunt and going hungry for another day. Each spear is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. The shaft is carefully selected for straightness and strength, often from young saplings that grew in dense competition, making the wood tight-grained and flexible. The point is knapped from carefully chosen stone, flint, obsidian, or chert, shaped with precise blows to create sharp cutting edges and a strong tip. The binding that holds point to shaft is made from sinew, the tough connective tissue stripped from animals and dried until it becomes incredibly strong cordage. When wet, sinew can be wrapped and positioned. As it dries, it shrinks and tightens, creating a bond stronger than many modern adhesives. The hunters also check their throwing sticks, shorter weapons designed for smaller game or as backup weapons if a spear is lost or broken. These are simpler tools but no less important. A well-thrown stick can stun a rabbit or bird, providing an opportunistic meal when larger game is scarce. The gatherers organize their carrying baskets, woven from strips of bark and plant fibers into containers that are both strong and lightweight. These baskets are works of art in their own right, designed to carry maximum weight while remaining comfortable to haul over long distances. Every weave, every handle, every reinforcement represents accumulated wisdom about what works and what doesn't in the real world of daily use. The weaving technique varies depending on the intended use. Tight weaves for carrying small items like berries and nuts. Looser weaves for bulky items like roots and tubers. Waterproof weaves treated with tree sap for carrying liquids. Each basket is specialized, optimized for its particular function. Someone sharpens a knife on a piece of sandstone, the rhythmic scraping sound joining the crackle of the fire and the quiet murmur of conversation. The knife is a simple tool, a sharp piece of flint bound to a wooden handle with sinew, but it's versatile enough to cut meat, scrape hides, carve wood, and perform a dozen other essential tasks. The sharpening process requires skill and patience. Too aggressive and you remove too much material, shortening the tool's useful life. Too gentle and the edge remains dull. The angle must be consistent, the pressure even, the motion smooth and controlled. It's meditative work, repetitive and rhythmic, the kind of task that allows the mind to wander while the hands work automatically. The fire continues to grow, fed by careful additions of dry wood. The flames dance higher, casting moving shadows that transform the cave into something almost magical. But magic is a luxury here. What matters is the heat, the light, the promise that this safe space will remain safe for another day. Someone tends to a smaller fire pit near the back of the cave, where strips of meat hang on a wooden frame, slowly drying in the smoke. This is your insurance policy, your savings account. Dried meat will keep for weeks if stored properly, providing food during the lean times when hunting is poor and gathering turns up little. The meat drying process is another ancient technology, a way of preserving protein without refrigeration. The meat is cut into thin strips to maximize surface area, then hung in the smoke where the heat slowly removes moisture while the smoke adds preservative compounds that inhibit bacterial growth. The smoke from the drying meat adds another layer to the cave's complex atmosphere. It's a good smell, rich and promising. The smell of preparation, of thinking ahead, of refusing to let today's success make you forget about tomorrow's uncertainty. As the morning progresses, the cave fills with purposeful activity. Everyone has their role, their contribution to the group's survival. Even the seemingly idle moments serve a purpose. The quiet conversations that strengthen social bonds, the stories that pass down crucial knowledge, the simple companionship that makes the hardships bearable. The fire burns steadily now, a reliable source of heat and light, but everyone knows it's temporary. Tonight, it will need to be banked carefully for the long, cold hours of darkness. Tomorrow morning, it will need to be coaxed back to life again. And the day after that, And the day after that, for as long as your people call this cave home. Because surviving here is not a hobby, it's the only job you have. Every day, every decision, every moment of your life is shaped by the fundamental question: what do we need to do to make it through another day? The answer is always the same: tend the fire, find food, stay together, and hope that your accumulated wisdom and hard-won skills will be enough to see you through whatever challenges await outside the cave entrance. The morning routine is nearly complete. The fire burns bright, the minimal breakfast has been shared, the day's plans have been made and assignments given. Soon, it will be time to step outside and face whatever the world has in store for you. But for now, there's this moment of preparation, of gathering strength and resolve. The fire crackles, the smoke rises, and your people ready themselves for another day in the endless, essential work of staying alive. Another day in the grand human experiment of survival, cooperation, and hope in the face of an indifferent universe. Now that everyone's awake and the fire is crackling again, the real business begins. This isn't some corporate meeting with coffee and PowerPoint. It's just people squatting around the fire, chewing on tough meat, planning how not to starve. The conversation is quiet, purposeful, stripped of all the pleasantries and small talk that modern humans use to fill uncomfortable silences. Here, every word matters because every decision could mean the difference between a full belly and an empty one. The planning starts with yesterday's observations, shared in the careful shorthand of people whose lives depend on accurate information. Who saw what tracks where? What was the weather like at sunset? Did it suggest anything about today's conditions? Are there any injured animals in the area that might make for easier hunting? Did anyone notice signs of other human groups passing through? And if so, were they friendly or potentially hostile? Information flows quietly around the fire like a slow, essential river. The old woman who has the best eyes for tracking mentions deer prints near the bend in the river, fresh enough that the edges hadn't yet crumbled from wind and weather. The hoofprints were deep, suggesting well-fed animals moving without urgency, always a good sign for hunters. One of the younger hunters reports seeing a hawk circling the oak grove yesterday afternoon, which might mean small game below. Hawks don't waste energy on empty territory, so their presence usually indicates mice, rabbits, or other creatures that could supplement the group's diet, even if the main hunt fails. Someone else noticed storm clouds building over the mountains yesterday evening, still distant, but worth watching. Weather changes move fast in this landscape, and getting caught in the open during a sudden storm can mean the difference between a successful day and a deadly one. This intelligence gathering is crucial in ways that modern humans, with their weather apps and GPS systems, can barely comprehend. In a world without forecasts, satellites, or any form of long-distance communication, your survival depends entirely on reading the subtle signs that nature provides. A change in bird behavior might signal an approaching storm hours before you can see it. The direction animals move can tell you where water is, where predators are hunting, where food might be abundant. The conversation also touches on the group's internal dynamics. Who's feeling strong today? Who might be nursing an injury or fighting off illness? The hunter who twisted his ankle 2 days ago insists he's ready for action, but everyone can see he's still favoring his left foot. The gathering leader mentions that her daughter has been coughing through the night, not sick enough to stay behind, but worth monitoring. These personal assessments matter enormously. A hunt requires absolute coordination and trust between participants. One person moving wrong at the crucial moment can spook prey, endanger the team, or turn a successful hunt into a dangerous failure. Gathering might seem safer, but it involves its own risks. climbing trees for nuts, traversing unstable ground to reach root patches, venturing into areas where dangerous animals might be foraging. The group divides up naturally, sorted by skill, experience, and physical capability. It's not democratic in the modern sense. No one votes on assignments or argues about fairness. Instead, roles emerge from decades of working together, from intimate knowledge of each person's strengths and limitations. The decisions feel automatic, but they're actually the result of complex social calculations refined over generations of survival. This isn't a society that can afford to waste human resources or indulge personal preferences. If you're the best tracker, you track. If you're the strongest climber, you climb. If you have the steadiest hands for delicate work, that's what you do. Individual desires matter less than group survival, and everyone understands this without it needing to be stated. A few of the strongest and most skilled prepare for the hunt. These are the athletes of your group, the people whose entire lives have been shaped by the constant physical demands of pursuing large, dangerous animals across difficult terrain. Their muscles are lean and hard as stone, their reflexes honed by countless encounters with prey that can kill them if they make even a small mistake. Hunting isn't just about physical strength, though that's certainly required. It demands intelligence, patience, the ability to think like the animals you're pursuing. You need to understand wind patterns, animal behavior, terrain advantages, escape routes. You need to coordinate silently with your teammates, communicating through hand signals and shared understanding built up over years of working together. They check their spears with the methodical attention of people whose lives depend on their equipment functioning perfectly at the crucial moment. Each spear represents hours of careful work, from selecting the right wood to napping the stone point to binding everything together with sinew. The spear shafts have been selected for straightness and strength, often harvested from young trees that grew in competition with others, making the grain tight and resilient. The wood has been seasoned, dried slowly to prevent cracking, then shaped with stone tools and fire to achieve perfect balance and flex characteristics. The spear points are works of art in their own right, each one representing hours of careful knapping. The ancient skill of shaping stone through precise impacts is harder than it looks. One wrong strike can shatter hours of work. The hunter examines every edge, looking for chips or cracks that could cause the point to fail at the moment when an animal's life hangs in the balance. They test the binding, checking that the sinew wrapping is tight and hasn't loosened from moisture or repeated use. Sinew is incredibly strong when properly prepared, but it's also organic material that can weaken over time. A loose spear point that separates from the shaft during a hunt isn't just an equipment failure, it's a potential death sentence. Each spear is a small masterpiece of survival technology, because a broken spear at the wrong moment can mean a dead hunter. There are no hardware stores here, no emergency backup equipment waiting in a truck. If your primary weapon fails during a hunt, you're left with whatever improvised tools you can fashion from materials at hand. Never a comfortable position when facing a panicked, powerful animal with sharp hooves and a strong desire to live. The hunters also check their secondary equipment with the same obsessive attention to detail. Throwing sticks for smaller game, carefully balanced for accuracy and impact. Knives for field dressing kills, sharp enough to penetrate hide and separate joints cleanly. Coils of rope made from twisted plant fibers, strong enough to drag a carcass but light enough to carry over long distances. Each item has been tested in real-world conditions, refined through trial and sometimes painful error. Nothing here exists for show or status. Every tool must prove its worth through practical use. The margin for error is too small to tolerate equipment that looks good but fails when needed. They talk quietly about tracks spotted yesterday, their voices low and serious. The deer trails near the river, where the animals come down to drink in the early morning hours before the sun gets too high and the day becomes dangerous. The tracks were fresh, the animals moving slowly, suggesting they felt secure in the area. Good signs for a successful hunt, but no guarantees in a world where everything depends on chance and skill. Maybe the faint, careful prints of wild boar, dangerous game that requires careful coordination and absolute trust between hunters. Boar are powerful, aggressive when cornered, armed with tusks that can inflict terrible wounds. They're also intelligent, capable of setting up ambushes for unwary hunters. But they represent a massive payoff in meat and fat if the hunt succeeds, enough food to keep the group well fed for days. The hunters discuss strategy in the shorthand of people who have worked together for years, who understand each other's capabilities and limitations without needing detailed explanations. Who will take the lead position, approaching the prey from downwind to avoid detection? Who will circle around to drive the animals toward the kill zone? Who will deliver the final strike, and who will be ready to help if something goes wrong? They consider the terrain carefully, visualizing the hunt before it happens. The likely escape routes the animals will take when they detect danger. The best positions for ambush, where natural features provide concealment and tactical advantage. The weather conditions that might affect visibility, wind direction, the animal's behavior and alertness levels. This planning isn't casual speculation, it's life and death tactical preparation. A poorly planned hunt doesn't just result in missed opportunities. It can get people killed. Animals fight back when cornered, and even a deer can break bones with a well-placed kick. Wild boar can gut a human with their tusks. Even small prey animals can inflict painful bites or carry diseases. Hunting isn't a guarantee and everyone knows it. Most hunts fail, despite careful planning and skilled execution. The animals are fast, alert, and smart. They have their own survival instincts, their own knowledge of the landscape, their own strategies for avoiding predators. A spooked herd can disappear into the forest faster than any human can follow, leaving hunters with nothing but sore feet and empty stomachs. The psychological pressure is constant and sometimes overwhelming. Every missed opportunity, every failed hunt, every day that passes without fresh meat brings the group closer to serious hunger. The hunters carry this responsibility on their shoulders like a physical weight, knowing that their families depend on their skill and luck. It's a burden that shapes everything about how they move through the world. But they go anyway because the alternative is slow starvation. Because someone has to take the risk, make the attempt, face the possibility of failure. Because in a world without grocery stores or delivery services, meat doesn't appear by magic. It has to be earned through courage, skill, and the willingness to face dangerous animals on their own territory. The gathering party is the insurance policy, the steady foundation that keeps the group fed even when hunting fails spectacularly. It's usually more reliable than hunting, with higher success rates and lower risks, but that doesn't make it easy or unskilled work. The knowledge required for successful gathering is encyclopedic, built up over generations of careful observation and sometimes fatal trial and error. Gathering isn't just grab any old plant like some primitive salad bar. It's an intimate understanding of hundreds of plant species, their growth patterns, their seasonal cycles, their nutritional and medicinal properties. You need to know which roots you can eat raw, which need to be cooked to neutralize toxins, which will kill you outright if you make the wrong identification. The difference between food and poison is often subtle, sometimes coming down to details as small as leaf shape or the color of plant sap. Many edible plants have toxic lookalikes that can fool even experienced gatherers. A single mistake can result in anything from stomach upset to convulsions to death, not just for the person who made the error, but potentially for anyone who shares the contaminated food. Which berries are edible? Which are poison dressed up in bright colors designed to attract unwary animals and birds? Nature is full of these deceptions. Beautiful berries that cause convulsions, attractive mushrooms that destroy the liver, innocent-looking leaves that cause painful chemical burns. The gatherers have learned to recognize these dangers through generations of accumulated wisdom, paid for sometimes with the lives of those who guessed wrong. And it's all seasonal, changing constantly as plants move through their annual cycles. You need to know which trees drop nuts now, which bushes have fruit ready for harvest, which medicinal herbs grow in the shady spots near water sources. The timing matters enormously. Too early and the food isn't ready, too late and it's been claimed by animals or has begun to rot. Root vegetables are available at different times depending on the species. Some are best in early spring when the stored energy is concentrated in the root. Others reach peak nutrition in fall as the plant prepares for winter dormancy. Nuts have specific harvest windows when they're ripe, but haven't yet fallen and been eaten by squirrels and other competitors. There's no written guide to any of this knowledge, no field manuals or botanical reference books. Just memory, tradition, constant observation passed down from elder to younger in an unbroken chain of survival expertise. Each generation adds to the accumulated knowledge, refining techniques, discovering new food sources, learning from mistakes that might have cost lives. The knowledge includes not just what to gather, but how to gather it sustainably. Take too much from one area and you eliminate future harvests. Damage the root system while digging and the plant dies. Harvest at the wrong time and you prevent the plant from reproducing. The best gatherers understand that they're part of an ecosystem, not just exploiting it, but managing it for long-term productivity. The gatherers sort through their equipment with the same careful attention as the hunters, checking each tool for functionality and reliability. Digging sticks hardened in fire for extracting deep roots without breaking them. Curved knives designed for harvesting without damaging the plants. Carrying baskets woven to specific sizes and shapes for different types of food. The digging sticks are marvels of simple engineering that represent generations of refinement. Made from hardwood saplings, fire-hardened to create a point almost as durable as metal. The length is calculated for leverage, allowing maximum force to be applied with minimum effort. The grip is shaped to fit human hands comfortably during hours of repetitive digging motion. Some digging sticks have secondary tools attached. Small knives for cutting roots cleanly, scrapers for cleaning dirt from harvested tubers, even small containers for collecting seeds. Every feature serves a practical purpose, tested and refined through actual use in challenging conditions. The harvesting knives are specialized tools designed for specific tasks. Some have curved blades perfect for cutting stems without damaging the plant's crown. Others have serrated edges for sawing through tough bark. The handles are shaped for different grip styles depending on the cutting motion required. The carrying baskets represent sophisticated understanding of materials engineering and ergonomics. Woven from strips of bark and plant fibers, they're designed to carry maximum weight while remaining comfortable to haul over long distances. The weaving patterns vary depending on intended use. Tight weaves for small items like berries, looser weaves for bulky roots, waterproof weaves treated with tree sap for carrying liquids. People sort through their gear with practiced efficiency, the movements automatic after years of repetition. Stone knives with edges sharp enough to shave with, maintained through constant attention and skilled resharpening. Leather pouches for carrying food, sewn with tiny, even stitches that will hold under the stress of heavy loads carried over rough terrain. Water containers made from animal bladders, waterproofed with fat and sealed with wooden stoppers carved to fit precisely. These containers are crucial for day-long expeditions away from reliable water sources. They're also fragile. A puncture or loose stopper can leave you dehydrated in dangerous situations. Simple tools, but effective in ways that modern technology sometimes isn't. These are your lifelines, the equipment that stands between you and starvation. Every item has been tested in real-world conditions, refined through generations of use, perfected through the harsh feedback of survival where failure means death. There's no, "I forgot my lunch" here, no running back to the house for forgotten items, no stopping at a convenience store to pick up supplies. Everything you eat tonight depends on what you find or kill today. The pressure is constant, inescapable, written into every decision and every moment of preparation. The weight of this responsibility affects everyone differently. Some thrive under the pressure, becoming more focused and determined as the stakes increase. Others struggle with the constant anxiety, the knowledge that a single mistake or stroke of bad luck could mean hunger for the entire group. But everyone adapts because the alternative is not surviving at all. You glance at your own kit, laid out on a flat stone near your sleeping area, with the methodical organization of someone who can't afford to lose anything important. Your stone knife has a couple of chips from yesterday's work, small fractures along the cutting edge that compromise its effectiveness and could lead to bigger problems if not addressed. In the modern world, you might just grab a replacement from a drawer full of kitchen knives or order a new one online for next-day delivery. Here, this knife represents hours of careful work, and replacing it would mean starting over from raw materials that might not even be available locally. You squat by the fire and start repairing the damage, pulling out your knapping tools, small pieces of antler and hard stone used to remove tiny flakes from the blade edge. The work requires absolute concentration and years of accumulated skill that can't be learned from books or videos. One bad hit and you'll ruin the entire tool, turning useful equipment into worthless scrap. The technique involves understanding stone at almost a molecular level. How force travels through different types of rock, how the angle of impact affects the resulting flake, how temperature and moisture change the stone's behavior. You learn to read the subtle signs in the stone's structure that predict how a piece will fracture, adjusting your approach for each individual tool. Tapping flakes from the edge with careful precision that took years to learn, you gradually restore the knife's cutting ability. Each small removal of stone sharpens the edge while potentially weakening the overall structure. It's a delicate balance between maintaining sharpness and preserving the tool's longevity. The work is almost meditative, requiring complete focus that blocks out everything else. The rhythm of small taps, the careful examination of each flake, the gradual improvement in the blade's edge. It's satisfying work when done well, frustrating and sometimes dangerous when rushed or done carelessly. Stone on stone echoes through the cave, a sound older than history itself, older than civilization, older than agriculture. This rhythm has been heard in human dwellings for hundreds of thousands of years. The steady percussion of survival technology being maintained and refined by countless generations of people trying not to die. The sound draws attention from others in the cave, but not interruption. Tool maintenance is partly individual work and partly community activity. People share techniques, offer advice, provide second opinions on difficult repairs. A well-maintained tool benefits not just its owner, but the entire group, since tools are often shared during collaborative work. Children watch the repair work with intense focus, absorbing lessons about stone tool technology that they'll need for their own survival. The older children help with simpler tasks, sorting through flakes to find pieces suitable for small tools, fetching water to clean finished implements, organizing the stone debris for later use as raw material. There's no formal school here, no classroom instruction, no textbooks or lesson plans or standardized curricula. Just learning by doing, watching, imitating, gradually building the skills that mean the difference between life and death. Education is immediate, practical, essential. A child who doesn't learn fast enough simply doesn't survive to pass on their genes. The learning process is harsh but effective in ways that modern education often isn't. Mistakes have immediate consequences. A poorly made tool fails when you need it most. An incorrectly identified plant makes you sick. A moment of inattention while working stone results in cut fingers and lost work time. But success builds confidence and competence that no theoretical education could provide. When you make a tool with your own hands and use it successfully to gather food or build shelter, you develop a deep understanding of the relationship between human intelligence and survival that no classroom can teach. Around the cave, other people are engaged in their own preparation rituals, each focused on the specific requirements of their assigned tasks. Someone is checking the condition of rope and cordage, testing knots and splices for weaknesses that could prove catastrophic during actual use. Rope failure during a hunt or while crossing difficult terrain can be more than inconvenient. It can be deadly. A broken rope while descending a cliff face or crossing a swollen stream can kill you quickly. Even during routine tasks, rope failure can result in lost equipment, missed opportunities, or dangerous situations. The rope making itself is an art form that combines understanding of plant biology with practical engineering. Plant fibers must be harvested at the right season when they're strongest and most flexible. The processing removes unwanted material while preserving the long, strong fibers that give rope its strength. The fibers are then twisted into strands of consistent thickness and strength. The twist rate affects both strength and flexibility. Too loose and the rope stretches uselessly under load. Too tight and it becomes stiff and prone to kinking. Multiple strands are then twisted together in the opposite direction to create the final rope. Someone else is waterproofing leather goods, rubbing animal fat into hide clothing and containers to maintain their water resistance. This is smelly, messy work that leaves your hands greasy and your clothing reeking of rancid fat, but it's essential for surviving in wet conditions. The waterproofing process requires specific types of fat. Some work better than others for different applications. Bear fat is prized for its water-repelling properties and resistance to rancidity. Deer fat is better for maintaining flexibility in leather that needs to bend frequently. Each type of animal fat has its own characteristics, and experienced craftspeople know exactly which to use for each application. The treatment must be applied in thin, even layers that penetrate the leather fibers without clogging the pores that allow the material to breathe. Too much fat, and the leather becomes stiff and uncomfortable. Too little, and it loses its water resistance when you need it most. Finally, after what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 minutes of careful work, you stand and stretch muscles that have stiffened from squatting in one position. Your knife is sharp again, the edge restored to proper cutting geometry, ready for another day of cutting, scraping, and general utility work. You check your other gear methodically, running through a mental checklist developed over years of learning what you can't afford to forget. Water container full and properly sealed, the stopper tight enough to prevent leakage during vigorous activity. Food pouch empty and ready for today's harvest, the leather supple and the stitching intact. Spare cordage coiled neatly and easily accessible, because rope has a tendency to break at the worst possible moments. Emergency fire starting materials wrapped carefully to keep them dry. because being able to make fire can mean the difference between life and death if you're forced to spend a night away from the cave. You examine your digging stick, testing the point for sharpness and the shaft for cracks or weak spots that might indicate impending failure. This tool will be subjected to considerable stress today, prying up stubborn roots, breaking through hard soil, possibly serving as a walking stick on difficult terrain. Any weakness could result in failure at a crucial moment when you're trying to extract a valuable food source. The tool feels solid in your hands, balanced and familiar. The fire-hardened point is still sharp enough to penetrate packed earth, and the shaft shows no signs of the stress fractures that usually precede catastrophic failure. Good enough for another day of hard use. You tighten the leather ties on your clothing, adjusting the fit for maximum freedom of movement while maintaining protection from thorns, rocks, and rapidly changing weather conditions. Every piece of clothing serves multiple purposes: warmth, protection, storage, even emergency shelter if necessary. It's all animal hide, carefully scraped clean of meat and fat, then softened through a complex process involving brain tanning or other natural chemicals that break down the tough protein fibers. The hides are sewn together with sinew thread that's stronger than most modern synthetic materials when properly prepared. The clothing construction reflects generations of refinement and testing. Seams are placed to minimize chafing during long walks and repetitive movements. Openings are designed for easy adjustment as weather conditions change throughout the day. Pockets and attachment points are positioned for convenient access to tools and supplies while maintaining balance and freedom of movement. No zippers, no buttons, no synthetic materials, no mass production. Just raw materials shaped by human ingenuity into functional, durable clothing that can keep you alive in harsh conditions. The simplicity is deceptive. These garments represent sophisticated understanding of materials science, ergonomics, and environmental protection. Your footwear deserves special attention, because in a world where most travel is on foot across rough terrain, protecting your feet is absolutely crucial for survival. Injured feet can strand you away from shelter, make gathering impossible, prevent you from contributing to group activities. Foot problems can kill you through immobility. Your boots are moccasins made from thick hide, with additional sole protection added for walking on rocks and rough ground. The construction is more complex than it appears, designed to provide protection while maintaining the flexibility and ground feel that's essential for safe movement over uneven terrain. Multiple layers of hide provide different properties: a tough outer layer for abrasion resistance, a softer inner layer for comfort, waterproof treatment to keep moisture out while allowing perspiration to escape. The fit is crucial. Too tight, and you develop blisters that can become infected. Too loose, and you lose efficiency and develop different kinds of foot problems. You check the condition of your boot laces, made from braided sinew or leather strips. Lace failure can make walking difficult or impossible, potentially stranding you far from shelter when weather conditions deteriorate. Like everything else in this environment, footwear requires constant maintenance and attention. The laces are holding up well, still strong and flexible despite daily use. The knots are tight, but not so tight that they cut off circulation or become impossible to untie with cold, stiff fingers. Everything checks out for another day of hard use. Outside, the pale light of dawn spills into the cave mouth, gradually brightening as the sun climbs above the horizon. The quality of light tells you important things about weather conditions. Clear and bright suggests good hunting and gathering weather. Diffuse and gray might mean incoming storms that could make outdoor work dangerous. You pause at the cave entrance, reading the morning like a personalized weather report. The air temperature gives you information about overnight cooling and likely daytime highs. Humidity levels affect everything from animal behavior to plant moisture content. Wind direction and strength provide clues about weather systems moving through the region. The sounds outside tell their own story to ears trained to interpret natural information. Bird calls indicate what species are active and where they're located, which tells you about food availability and predator activity. The absence of bird sounds might signal the presence of large predators that have spooked smaller animals into hiding. Insect activity provides information about temperature, humidity, and seasonal progression. Even the sound of wind through trees tells you about weather conditions, wind strength, and the health of the local ecosystem. Every natural sound contains information that could affect your survival. You take a breath that tastes of smoke and damp rock and fear and hope. The smoke taste comes from the constantly burning fire that represents safety, civilization, and the promise of warmth when you return. The damp rock speaks to the cave environment that provides shelter, but also imposes limitations on your living space. The fear is ever present but manageable. Awareness that today, like every day, involves real risks to life and health that can't be eliminated or transferred to someone else. There are no insurance policies here, no emergency services, no safety nets except your own skills and the support of your group. But there's hope too, strong and persistent despite the harsh realities. Hope that today's hunting will be successful, that gathering will turn up new food sources, that no one will be injured, that the weather will cooperate with your plans. Hope that your accumulated skills and knowledge will be enough to see you through another day. The mixture of emotions is complex and contradictory in ways that modern humans rarely experience. Confidence born from years of successful survival, tempered by intimate knowledge of how quickly things can go wrong. Pride in your abilities balanced against humility before the power of nature. Determination to succeed combined with acceptance that some factors are beyond human control. Time to go find breakfast. The phrase sounds casual, almost modern, but it represents the fundamental challenge of existence in this environment. Every meal must be earned through skill, effort, and luck. There are no guaranteed food sources, no backup plans, no safety nets, except what you can create through your own efforts. The group begins to move toward the cave entrance, each person carrying their specialized equipment and hard-won knowledge. The hunters move with quiet confidence, their weapons checked and ready, their minds already focused on the challenges ahead. The gatherers organize their tools and containers with practiced efficiency, mentally reviewing the locations of promising food sources. Everyone understands their role in the day's survival strategy, but they also understand that plans can change quickly when you're dealing with unpredictable factors like weather, animal behavior, and simple chance. Flexibility and adaptability are as important as specialized skills. But before anyone steps outside, there's one final ritual that connects this ancient group with the deepest human traditions. A moment of silent acknowledgement of the risks ahead, of the dependence on each other's skills, of the hope that everyone will return safely at the end of the day. No words are spoken, but the feeling is palpable, a shared understanding of the stakes involved in simply getting through another day. It's a moment that connects these Ice Age humans with every group of people who have ever faced uncertainty together, who have depended on each other for survival, who have hoped that their combined efforts would be enough to see them through. The fire burns steadily behind you, tended by those staying in the cave to maintain the home base and care for those too young or too old for the day's expeditions. It represents home, safety, the promise of warmth and light when you return from whatever challenges await in the larger world. But first, you must venture into that larger world where food waits to be found and countless dangers lurk in the seemingly peaceful landscape. The morning air is crisp and clean, carrying scents of earth and vegetation, and the distant promise of weather changes that could affect everything about your day. Your breath forms small clouds in the cold air, visible proof of the life force that must be sustained through whatever challenges the day brings. Each exhalation is a reminder that life is temporary, fragile, dependent on constant effort and attention to survive. You step outside, leaving the security of the cave for the uncertainty of the wider world. Behind you, the fire continues to burn, a beacon that will guide you home when the day's work is done. Ahead lies another day in the endless human story of survival, adaptation, and hope against overwhelming odds. The hunt for breakfast, and ultimately, for another day of life in a world that doesn't care whether you survive, begins now. You step outside the cave and squint at the pale morning light. No city noise, no traffic hum, no air conditioning units, no distant airplane engines crossing overhead. Just the whisper of wind through ancient trees, the distant calls of birds announcing their territory to rivals and mates, and the crunch of frost under your feet. A sound like walking on broken glass, crisp and sharp in the cold air. The silence is profound in ways that modern humans never experience. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of natural sounds that have meaning, purpose, information encoded in every call and rustle. Your ears automatically filter and categorize what you hear, sorting threat from opportunity, familiar from strange, near from far. Ahead lies a forest that seems endless, stretching to the horizon in every direction like a green ocean frozen in time. Towering oaks and beeches with trunks so thick you'd need a whole group holding hands to circle one, their bark ridged and scarred by decades of weather, animal claws, and the simple passage of time. These are old-growth trees, specimens that have stood for centuries, their canopies forming a cathedral ceiling high overhead. In summer, they would create deep shade and cool temperatures. Now, in late autumn, their branches are mostly bare, allowing pale sunlight to filter through and reach the forest floor. The undergrowth is tangled with bushes, fallen logs in various stages of decay, and a carpet of old leaves that squelch softly as you walk. The leaf litter is thick here, years of accumulated fall debris that creates a spongy, uneven surface underfoot. It's slippery when wet, concealing holes and obstacles, but it also harbors the small creatures and decomposing organic matter that feeds the forest ecosystem. Every step requires attention. A turned ankle here could be a death sentence if it prevents you from keeping up with the group or contributing to food gathering. The forest floor is littered with hazards, fallen branches, hidden rocks, animal burrows, patches of slick mud. But it's also rich with opportunities for those who know how to read the signs. Your band spreads out but stays within earshot, moving through the forest in a loose formation that maximizes search coverage while maintaining group cohesion. Rule number 1 of survival: never wander off alone. Out here, being alone is basically an invitation to die. Predators looking for easy meals, rival human groups defending territory, getting lost in terrain that all looks the same. The spacing is carefully calculated based on years of experience. Close enough that a whispered warning can reach everyone, far enough apart that the group can cover maximum ground efficiently. Too tight and you miss opportunities. Too spread out and someone could disappear without the group noticing until it's too late. You don't test those odds because the statistics are harsh. Solo travelers in this environment have a lifespan measured in days rather than years. Humans survived and thrived during the Ice Age through cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual protection. Individual heroics are a luxury that evolution hasn't equipped you for. The group moves with practiced stealth. each person stepping carefully to minimize noise that might alert prey animals or attract unwanted attention from predators. Footfalls are placed deliberately, avoiding dry leaves and brittle twigs that snap loudly in the quiet forest. Communication is through hand signals and meaningful glances rather than spoken words. As you walk, you're constantly scanning everything around you, your eyes and brain working together in patterns developed over a lifetime of survival. Every leaf, every broken twig, every disturbance in the forest floor matters. You're reading the landscape like a book written in signs and symbols that most modern humans wouldn't even notice. Signs of deer trails, the subtle paths worn by generations of animals moving between feeding and bedding areas. These trails follow the easiest routes through dense vegetation, often leading to water sources or seasonal food concentrations. Following deer trails can lead you to areas rich in both game animals and edible plants. The trails themselves tell stories. Fresh hoofprints in soft soil indicate recent passage and direction of travel. Broken twigs at deer height suggest feeding activity. Rub marks on tree trunks show where bucks have scraped their antlers, marking territory and indicating the presence of mature, potentially dangerous male animals. Edible plants require a different kind of attention. You're looking for the subtle differences that distinguish food from poison, mature from unripe, healthy from diseased. Leaf shape, color, growth pattern, location, all provide crucial information about whether a plant is safe to harvest and consume. Hidden dangers lurk everywhere in this environment. Predator sign that indicates recent activity by animals that consider humans potential prey. Unstable terrain that could collapse under your weight. Weather indicators that suggest incoming storms. Even other human groups that might be competing for the same resources. You're not on a leisurely hike through scenic wilderness. You're on a mission where every find means calories your family desperately needs, where every mistake could have serious consequences, where success and failure are measured in terms of survival rather than enjoyment. The pressure is constant but manageable through years of experience. Your senses are heightened, your attention focused, your body ready to react quickly to changing circumstances. This is the human brain and body operating at peak efficiency, evolved over millions of years for exactly this kind of environment. Your digging stick isn't just for show, it's your best tool for unearthing roots and tubers, prying up bulbs without smashing them to useless pulp. The implement is perfectly balanced for this work, long enough to provide leverage, sharp enough to penetrate hard-packed soil, strong enough to pry against rocks and tree roots. The soil here is cold and damp but workable, softened by autumn rains but not yet frozen solid. Each probe of your digging stick sends information up through the wood. The resistance tells you about soil density. The sound indicates whether you've hit rock or root. The feel suggests whether there might be something buried worth investigating. When you spot the telltale green shoots of wild garlic poking through the leaf litter, your group is quietly pleased. It's a significant find that represents multiple benefits rolled into one discovery. The wild garlic is food and medicine, providing both calories and compounds that help fight infections. It also makes the bland, tough meat taste better, transforming subsistence eating into something approaching pleasure. Wild garlic is one of those miraculous plants that early humans learned to treasure. The bulbs are rich in vitamins and minerals often lacking in a meat-heavy diet. The green shoots provide fresh vegetation when most plants have died back for winter. The antimicrobial properties help prevent the infections that could easily kill someone in this environment. But harvesting it requires knowledge and skill. You need to identify it correctly. Wild garlic has several toxic lookalikes that can cause serious poisoning. You need to dig carefully to extract the bulbs without destroying them. You need to know how much to take without eliminating the plant's ability to reproduce. You share the find immediately, calling the others over with a subtle hand signal that indicates food discovery. Everyone gathers around as you demonstrate the proper harvesting technique, digging carefully around each bulb to preserve the root system and ensure future harvests from this location. The bulbs come up cleanly, each one a small victory against hunger and malnutrition. They're dirty, requiring cleaning, but intact and healthy looking. These will supplement tonight's meal and provide variety in a diet that can become monotonously limited during lean times. They go into leather pouches designed specifically for carrying delicate harvested foods. The pouches are lined with soft moss to prevent bruising, sized to distribute weight evenly, waterproof to protect against moisture. Each pouch represents hours of careful craftsmanship and accumulated knowledge about food transportation. Hours pass in this slow, focused search, the group moving methodically through promising areas of the forest. Time moves differently here than in the modern world. There are no clocks, no schedules, no artificial deadlines. The pace is determined by the needs of survival and the rhythms of nature. The search pattern is based on understanding plant ecology and animal behavior. Certain areas are more likely to yield food, south-facing slopes that get more sunlight, areas near water sources, edge zones where forest meets meadow. The group gravitates toward these productive areas while avoiding obvious dangers. Some members of the group find nuts scattered in the fallen leaves, hazelnuts and beech nuts that represent concentrated nutrition in small packages. These nuts are high in fat and protein, crucial for surviving winter when other food sources become scarce. But they also require significant processing to become edible. Hazelnuts need to be cracked open carefully to extract the meat without destroying it. The shells are hard enough to require tools and technique. Too much force and you crush the nut meat along with the shell. Too little and the shell won't break. It's another skill that takes practice to master. Beech nuts are smaller but even more nutritious, packed with oils that provide concentrated energy. They're also more difficult to process, requiring removal of the outer husk, cracking of the inner shell, and extraction of tiny nut meats. The work is tedious but worthwhile given their nutritional density. The nuts represent future security as much as immediate nutrition. They can be stored for weeks or months if properly dried and protected from moisture and rodents. A good nut harvest can mean the difference between surviving winter and starving when other food sources fail. But they need preparation work that will extend long past today's gathering expedition. Cracking shells, removing bitter husks, sorting good nuts from spoiled ones. Work you'll do tonight by the fire, when the day's dangerous outdoor activities are finished and the group gathers for the evening meal. The nut processing also becomes a social activity, bringing the group together for shared work while maintaining the tools and equipment needed for survival. Stories are told during the long hours of detailed work, knowledge is passed down, social bonds are strengthened through cooperative effort. Each nut must be evaluated individually for quality and ripeness. The storage methods must be adjusted based on humidity, temperature, and expected storage duration. Every technique has been refined through trial and error, every method proven through practical use in real survival situations. Even now, with years of experience behind you, you check with the older gatherers before picking unfamiliar berries or mushrooms. Age brings wisdom in this environment, and the elders have seen more seasons, encountered more plant species, survived more potential poisoning incidents than younger group members. Eat the wrong mushroom and best-case scenario is violent vomiting that leaves you weak and dehydrated. Worst, the margin for error is too small to allow for experimental eating. The older gatherers examine each questionable find carefully, checking multiple identifying characteristics before giving approval or rejection. They consider not just the plant itself, but the growing conditions, the season, the location, the presence of associated species that might indicate environmental factors affecting edibility. Their knowledge encompasses not just what's safe to eat, but when it's safe, how much is safe, how to prepare it safely. Some plants are edible only at certain stages of growth. Others require specific preparation to neutralize toxins. Still, this consultation process slows down the gathering, but it also prevents the kind of mistakes that could kill group members or make them too sick to contribute to survival activities. The trade-off between efficiency and safety is always resolved in favor of safety in an environment where medical help is non-existent. Midday arrives gradually, marked not by clocks but by the position of the sun and the changing quality of light filtering through the forest canopy. The pale morning light has strengthened and warmed, though the air temperature remains cold enough to see your breath. You pause by a stream that cuts through the forest like a silver ribbon, its water ice cold and perfectly clear. The stream represents both opportunity and risk, a source of fresh water, but also a potential barrier, a place where predators might drink, a location that other groups might claim as territory. No plastic bottles here, no filtration systems, no chemical purification tablets. The technique is practiced, efficient, minimizing the time you spend in the vulnerable position of kneeling beside water. The water tastes like earth and stone and pure survival, clean, cold, refreshing in ways that modern humans rarely experience. There's no chlorine taste, no hint of industrial contamination, just the natural flavor of water filtered through soil and rock over miles of underground flow. But drinking from natural sources also carries risks that your group understands and accepts. Waterborne parasites, bacterial contamination, chemical runoff from upstream sources. The risk-benefit calculation favors drinking when you're thirsty and water is available, but everyone understands the potential consequences. The stream also provides other opportunities: fresh water for cleaning harvested food, for washing hands after handling potentially contaminated materials, for cooling overheated bodies during strenuous work. Water is life in the most literal sense, and finding a good source is always cause for quiet celebration. Lunch is humble by any standard, even the survival standards you've grown accustomed to. A few nuts cracked open with stones and picked clean of shell fragments. A bite of yesterday's leftover meat, tough and chewy but still providing essential protein. Maybe no seasoning beyond what nature provides, no fancy cooking techniques, no elaborate preparation. Your stomach doesn't complain about the lack of variety or sophistication. It knows this is fuel you need to keep going, calories that will power the afternoon's continued search for food. The simplicity of the meal is deceptive. Each item represents successful application of complex survival skills. The nuts required knowledge to find, tools to harvest, technique to process. The meat represents a successful hunt, proper field dressing, careful preservation. The roots demand plant identification skills and harvesting techniques. You're not exactly enjoying a picnic in the modern sense of recreational outdoor dining, but there's something deeply satisfying about knowing that everything you eat today, you found yourself through skill, knowledge, and effort. The connection between work and sustenance is immediate and visceral in ways that modern food systems completely obscure. The meal also serves social purposes beyond simple nutrition. Sharing food reinforces group bonds and demonstrates commitment to mutual survival. The act of eating together, even sparse rations, reminds everyone that individual success contributes to group welfare. The break beside the stream also provides opportunity for checking equipment, comparing notes about the morning's discoveries, planning the afternoon's activities. Information flows freely about what each person has found, where the best opportunities might lie, what areas should be avoided due to danger signs. Someone reports seeing fresh bear scat upstream, indicating the presence of a large predator in the area. The scat was still warm and moist, suggesting the bear passed through very recently. This information affects routing decisions for the rest of the day, areas to avoid, extra vigilance required, escape routes to keep in mind. Another group member mentions finding deer tracks leading toward a grove of oak trees where acorns might be concentrated. Acorns represent a major food source when available, but they require extensive processing to remove bitter tannins that make them inedible in their natural state. The processing involves crushing the acorns into meal, then leaching the meal in running water for days or weeks until the bitter compounds are washed away. It's labor-intensive work that pays off in stored nutrition that can last through winter months when other food sources are unavailable. Weather observations are shared and evaluated. Cloud formations building to the west suggest possible afternoon storms. Wind patterns indicate changing pressure systems that could bring rain or snow. Temperature trends suggest how long the group can safely remain away from shelter. These weather assessments affect everything about the day's activities. How far the group can range from the cave, how much risk to accept in pursuing distant food sources, when to start the return journey to ensure arrival before dangerous weather conditions develop. The afternoon search begins with renewed energy and focus. The morning's successes have boosted morale and demonstrated that food is available for those with the skills to find it. But the pressure remains constant. The group needs enough food not just for today, but for tomorrow and the days beyond. The search strategy shifts based on morning discoveries and changing conditions. Areas that proved productive receive more attention. New areas are explored based on promising signs observed during the morning's travel. Dangerous areas are avoided or approached with extra caution. Individual group members begin to specialize their efforts based on their particular skills and the day's opportunities. The best nut finder focuses on areas where tree nuts are likely to accumulate. The root specialist investigates areas where valuable tubers might be found. The plant medicine expert looks for herbs that provide healing compounds. This specialization increases efficiency while maintaining the group's broad-based knowledge. Everyone knows how to find all types of food, but focusing individual efforts on areas of expertise allows the group to exploit opportunities more thoroughly than would be possible with purely generalized searching. The forest changes character as the day progresses, and the group moves into different terrain. Dense stands of mature trees give way to more open areas where different plant communities thrive. Each ecosystem requires different search strategies and offers different potential rewards. Edge zones where forest meets meadow are particularly productive. These transition areas support plant species from both environments, creating diversity that translates into more food opportunities. But there are also more visible areas where the group might be spotted by predators or rival human groups. Stream valleys offer different opportunities and challenges. The moist soil supports different plant species, often including valuable medicinal herbs and edible roots. But valleys also concentrate animal traffic, increasing both hunting opportunities and predator risks. Rocky areas provide access to different plant species adapted to harsh growing conditions. Mountain vegetables often have concentrated nutrition and unique flavors, but harvesting them requires climbing skills and creates exposure to falls and weather. Each terrain type requires adapted search techniques, different safety protocols, specialized knowledge about what grows where and when. The group's accumulated experience allows them to read the landscape and adjust their approach automatically as conditions change. The afternoon search proves productive, with multiple discoveries that add to the day's food tally. Someone finds a patch of wild onions, their sharp flavor promising to enhance the evening meal while providing additional nutrients. The bulbs are small but numerous, requiring careful harvesting to avoid destroying the patch. Another group member locates a stand of birch trees with edible inner bark. Birch bark can be processed into a flour-like substance that provides carbohydrates and has medicinal properties. Harvesting it requires careful technique to avoid killing the trees that represent ongoing food sources. A fallen tree reveals a colony of edible mushrooms growing on the decaying wood. Mushrooms are particularly valuable finds because they provide protein and unique flavors while being available in seasons when other foods are scarce. But mushroom identification requires absolute certainty. The consequences of mistakes are too severe to risk. Each discovery is evaluated not just for immediate nutritional value, but for processing requirements, storage potential, and impact on future harvests. The group thinks in terms of sustainable use, taking what they need while preserving the resource base for future seasons. The harvesting techniques reflect this long-term thinking. Root vegetables are dug carefully to avoid damaging the plant's reproductive capacity. Tree resources are harvested selectively to maintain tree health. Even annual plants are gathered in ways that allow some specimens to complete their reproductive cycle. This conservation ethic isn't based on modern environmental philosophy, but on practical understanding that depleting resources today means starvation tomorrow. The group depends on these food sources year after year, and over-harvesting would be literally suicidal in the long term. As afternoon shadows begin to lengthen, the group starts considering the return journey to the cave. The day's foraging has been successful, but getting the harvested food safely home is just as important as finding it. All the day's work becomes worthless if the food is lost to accident, predators, or weather. The return route is planned carefully, considering the weight of harvested materials, the fatigue level of group members, potential weather changes, and security threats that might have developed during the day's absence. The route back might be different from the morning's outbound path. Loading the harvested food requires organizing the various containers and pouches to distribute weight evenly and protect delicate items. Heavy items like nuts go in sturdy baskets carried by the strongest members. Fragile items like berries and mushrooms are packed carefully with protective padding. Water containers are topped off at the stream before beginning the return journey. The extra weight is significant, but having adequate water for the evening and following morning is essential. Dehydration can be as dangerous as hunger in this environment. The group's formation changes for the return journey, with heavily loaded members protected in the center and the most capable fighters positioned to respond to threats. The pace is necessarily slower due to the additional weight, requiring earlier departure to reach safety before nightfall. Security becomes even more important during the return journey. A successful foraging group carrying food is an attractive target for predators and rival humans. The sight and smell of food can attract dangerous attention from considerable distances. Communication protocols are reviewed as the group prepares to depart. Hand signals for different types of threats, procedures for responding to predator encounters, emergency rally points if the group becomes separated. Everyone knows their role in protecting the day's hard-won harvest. The return journey also provides opportunity for additional opportunistic gathering. Items missed during the outbound journey might be spotted and collected. Signs noticed during the morning might lead to productive detours that don't significantly delay the return. But the primary focus is on getting home safely with the day's harvest intact. The afternoon's work has been successful, but success isn't complete until the food is safely stored in the cave and available for the evening meal and future consumption. Weather conditions are monitored constantly during the return. The clouds noticed earlier have continued building, and the possibility of afternoon rain or even early snow becomes more real as the day progresses. Getting caught in the open during a storm could be dangerous for the group and destructive to the harvested food. The pace quickens as weather concerns mount, but not enough to cause accidents or lose valuable food items. Balance is everything in survival situations, moving fast enough to avoid danger while maintaining enough control to preserve the day's gains. Individual group members begin showing signs of fatigue as the day's exertions take their toll. Heavy loads, difficult terrain, constant vigilance, and the stress of survival all combine to drain energy reserves. Managing this fatigue becomes part of the return journey strategy. Rest stops are planned for locations that offer both security and opportunities for final gathering. A protected spot where the group can pause safely while someone investigates a promising food source spotted during the return journey. These rest stops also provide opportunities to redistribute loads, check equipment for damage or wear, treat minor injuries before they become serious problems, and maintain group morale during the challenging return journey. As the cave comes into sight in the distance, there's a collective sense of relief and accomplishment. The day's mission has been successful, the group is returning intact, and the evening meal will be enhanced by the day's discoveries. But the day's work isn't finished until everything is safely stored and the evening routine begins. The sight of home, even a primitive cave dwelling, represents safety, warmth, and the completion of another successful day in the endless challenge of survival. But it also represents the beginning of the next cycle of challenges as the group prepares for evening activities and tomorrow's necessities. The return to the cave marks not just the end of the day's foraging, but another successful completion of the fundamental human activity that has sustained our species for hundreds of thousands of years. The daily quest for food in a dangerous world, accomplished through cooperation, knowledge, and the determination to survive against the odds. As the sun sinks lower, the forest shifts around you in ways both subtle and profound. The light turns golden first, filtering through the bare branches in slanted beams that illuminate dust motes and moisture in the air like tiny dancing spirits. Then it fades into a colder gray, leaching warmth from the air and shadows from the landscape until everything takes on that flat twilight quality that makes distances hard to judge and dangers harder to spot. The sounds change too, following the ancient rhythm of day creatures yielding territory to night dwellers. Birds quieting their territorial calls and settling into roosts, their daytime chatter replaced by the occasional rustle of wings and settling feathers. Wind sighing through bare branches with a hollow, lonely sound that seems to carry whispered warnings from the darkness gathering in the deeper parts of the forest. There's a hush settling over everything, that expectant silence that signals predators might start hunting. The forest is holding its breath, waiting for the shift from day hunters to night stalkers, from the familiar dangers you can see coming to the silent threats that move through darkness like liquid death. This is when the cave lions begin to stir, when the massive short-faced bears start their evening prowl, when the dire wolves gather in packs that can bring down animals 10 times their individual size. Your group knows it's time to head back without anyone needing to say it. The knowledge is written in your bones, passed down through thousands of generations of ancestors who survived long enough to reproduce because they understood when to retreat to safety. Getting caught out here in the dark isn't brave or adventurous. It's suicidal in the most literal sense possible. The night belongs to creatures better equipped for hunting in darkness than humans will ever be. Cats with eyes that gather the faintest starlight and amplify it into perfect night vision. Wolves with noses that can track scent trails hours old across miles of terrain. Bears powerful enough to crush human skulls with a casual swipe of paws equipped with claws longer than your fingers. So you gather up your finds with practiced efficiency, each movement economical and purposeful. Bulbs wrapped carefully in moss to prevent bruising during the journey home, their delicate skins protected from the rough handling that could damage their nutritional value. Nuts sorted by type and ripeness, the best specimens reserved for immediate consumption, while slightly inferior ones are designated for longer-term storage. The precious handful of late-season berries that represent concentrated vitamins in a world where scurvy and malnutrition are constant threats hanging over every member of your group. These berries are like edible jewels, each one packed with nutrients that could prevent the weakness, the bleeding gums, the eventual death that comes from vitamin deficiency. Every item is checked with the attention of someone whose life depends on getting the details right, counted to ensure nothing valuable has been accidentally left behind, secured for the journey home in containers designed through generations of trial and error to protect delicate foods during transport over rough terrain. The gathering process itself is methodical, almost ritualistic in its precision. Each person inventories their individual finds while contributing to the group's collective haul. Duplicates are noted and distributed to balance loads and ensure no one carries more than their fair share. Rarities are celebrated quietly. Medicinal plants are identified and set aside for special handling by the group's healing specialists. Nothing is casual about this process. Every item represents calories that could prevent starvation, nutrients that could prevent deficiency diseases, or healing compounds that could mean the difference between recovering from illness and dying from infections that modern medicine could cure with simple antibiotics. The organization also reflects the group's social structure and accumulated knowledge. The most experienced gatherers check questionable items to ensure nothing poisonous accidentally enters the food supply. Children watch and learn, absorbing lessons about proper food handling that they'll need for their own survival. Everyone has a role in maximizing the value extracted from the day's efforts, and head for the path home. Except there isn't really a path in the modern sense of a marked, maintained route between 2 points. You never take the exact same route twice, because predictability is a luxury you can't afford in a world where being predictable can get you killed by predators or rival humans who have learned your patterns. It's safer to vary your travel patterns constantly, confusing any potential followers and avoiding the establishment of worn trails that could lead predators or hostile humans directly to your cave. A well-used path is like an advertisement announcing where you live, where you sleep, where your children and elderly are vulnerable. Predictable paths invite ambush from other human groups competing for the same territory and resources, groups that might be desperate enough to kill for your food or your shelter, or from big cats that aren't picky about their dinner menu and have learned to associate human trails with easy hunting opportunities. Predators intelligent enough to set up ambushes at predictable locations. A saber-toothed cat or cave lion waiting beside a frequently used path could kill several group members before anyone could react effectively. These aren't the small cats of modern times. They're massive predators perfectly designed for killing large prey, including humans who make the mistake of becoming too predictable in their movements. So you wind your way through dense undergrowth, following game trails when they're convenient, and lead in roughly the right direction, striking out cross-country when necessary to maintain unpredictable routing. Always keeping your final destination secret from any potential watchers, while maintaining enough sense of direction to actually reach home before full darkness falls and navigation becomes exponentially more dangerous. The route selection requires balancing multiple factors: speed versus stealth, efficiency versus unpredictability, known safe areas versus unexplored terrain that might harbor unknown dangers. Every decision involves risk assessment and compromise. weighing the benefits of direct travel against the security advantages of varied routing. Eyes sharp, constantly scanning for movement that doesn't belong in the natural rhythm of forest life. Unusual shapes that might indicate predators or rival humans hiding in ambush positions. Broken vegetation that suggests recent passage by large animals or competing groups. Fresh tracks that could indicate dangerous animals moving through your intended route. Ears tuned for anything off. The crack of a branch under weight it shouldn't be bearing, suggesting something large moving nearby. The rustle of movement too large and purposeful for wind or small animals. The subtle silence that indicates a predator's presence has spooked the normal wildlife into hiding, creating an unnatural quiet that experienced survivors learn to recognize as a danger signal. Even the quality of sound carries information. Wind through leaves sounds different from animal movement. Bird calls change when predators are near. The absence of normal forest sounds can be as meaningful as the presence of unusual ones. Your ears have been trained since childhood to distinguish between safe and dangerous audio environments. The journey home requires different skills than the outbound trip, presenting its own unique challenges and risks. Now you're carrying valuable cargo that affects your mobility and fighting capability. The extra weight of gathered food slows your movement and makes quick, evasive action more difficult if you encounter threats along the way. The bulky containers and full pouches make it harder to move silently through dense vegetation, creating more noise and requiring more careful attention to route selection. The scent of food might attract unwanted attention from predators with keen noses, potentially drawing dangerous animals from considerable distances. But you're also following a more direct route toward a known safe destination, which allows for faster travel than the morning's exploratory wandering through unfamiliar terrain. The group formation changes to protect the food carriers, with the best fighters positioned to respond to threats, while the heavily loaded members stay protected in the center of the formation. The most experienced tracker takes point, reading the terrain ahead for signs of danger and selecting the safest route through potentially hazardous areas. The strongest fighters cover the flanks and rear, ready to engage threats from any direction. The heavily loaded gatherers move in the protected center, conserving energy for the long journey while remaining ready to drop their loads and fight if necessary. Navigation becomes crucial as familiar landmarks disappear in the gathering dusk and the forest takes on a different character in the changing light. The group relies on accumulated knowledge of the terrain, noting distinctive rock formations that remain visible even in poor light, unusual trees that serve as reliable reference points, the sound and direction of water features that provide audio navigation cues. Star patterns begin to appear as the sky darkens, providing additional navigation references for those skilled in reading celestial positions. The group's navigation specialist tracks their progress using multiple reference systems, ensuring they maintain proper direction even as individual landmarks become harder to distinguish in the fading light. Getting lost while carrying a day's worth of valuable food would be a disaster compounded by darkness and increasing vulnerability to night predators. The entire day's successful foraging would become worthless if the group couldn't find their way home, and spending a night in the open while carrying food would attract every dangerous scavenger and predator in the area. Weather conditions add another layer of complexity to the return journey. The temperature drops steadily as the sun disappears, requiring the group to balance speed against warmth conservation. Wind patterns shift with the changing temperature gradients, affecting scent dispersion and making it harder to detect approaching threats through smell. Cloud cover affects visibility and navigation, potentially obscuring the star patterns that provide directional references. The possibility of precipitation threatens both the group's comfort and the preservation of gathered foods that could be damaged by moisture. Weather awareness becomes critical for successful completion of the return journey. Finally, after what feels like hours of careful movement through increasingly shadowy terrain, you see the cave mouth in the distance, like an old friend waiting patiently for your return. The sight brings immediate relief and a quickening of pace as the group hurries towards safety and warmth, though discipline prevents anyone from breaking into a run that could cause accidents or attract unwanted attention. The cave opening appears as a darker shadow against the hillside, barely visible in the gathering darkness, but unmistakably familiar to eyes that have looked for this sight countless times before. It represents everything that makes survival possible: shelter from weather and predators, warmth from the constant fire, the security of familiar territory defended by your group. Smoke curls lazily from the entrance, a thin gray ribbon rising into the still air before dispersing in the slight breeze. That's the best sign possible, better than any modern welcome mat or porch light. It means the fire is alive and well tended, maintained by those who stayed behind to guard the home base and care for the young and elderly. It means you'll have warmth and light tonight, that the home base has been maintained successfully while you were away risking your lives to gather food. The fire represents continuity, the unbroken chain of human habitation that transforms a simple cave into a home, a shelter into a center of civilization, however primitive. The smoke also tells a detailed story to trained eyes that have learned to read the subtle signs of fire management. Thick, white smoke might indicate problems with wet wood or poor ventilation, suggesting the fire tenders are having difficulties that could compromise the group's warmth and safety. Black smoke could mean something is burning that shouldn't be, possibly indicating an emergency or accident. But this thin, steady stream of gray smoke indicates a healthy fire burning properly seasoned wood, tended by someone who knows what they're doing and has the situation well under control. The color, density, and dispersion pattern all suggest optimal burning conditions maintained by skilled firekeepers who understand their crucial responsibility. You step inside the cave, and the smell of smoke hits you in the face like a familiar embrace. But it's welcoming rather than choking. The sweet, sharp scent of properly burning hardwood mixed with the lingering aromas of cooked food and human habitation. The smell itself is complex, layered with information about what's been happening in your absence. The smoke carries hints of recent cooking, suggesting the hunters returned successfully and have already begun preparing their kill. There are undertones of preserved foods being processed, indicating productive work has continued throughout the day. Even the human scents tell stories. No smell of fear or stress, no indication of conflict or emergency during your absence. It means safety in the most basic, primitive sense: shelter from weather and predators, warmth against the killing cold that would claim your life within hours of exposure, light against the dangerous darkness where death stalks on silent paws. The cave represents the difference between being part of a protected community and being alone and vulnerable in a hostile world. Home, in the Paleolithic sense, isn't about comfort or convenience or the amenities that modern humans take for granted. It's about survival, pure and simple. The cave represents the fundamental human achievement of creating a safe space in a dangerous world, a place where the individual vulnerabilities that make humans easy prey for larger predators are overcome through cooperation and mutual protection. The transition from the dangerous outside world to the relative safety of the cave is psychologically profound. Outside your prey, soft, slow, poorly armed compared to the predators that hunt in darkness. Inside, you're part of a community that can defend itself, surrounded by fire that most predators fear instinctively, protected by stone walls that provide both physical and psychological security. People are already moving about inside the cave, their figures silhouetted against the firelight in a scene that could have been painted on these very walls thousands of years ago by artists whose daily lives were identical to yours. The continuity is profound. Humans have been living this way for so long that the activities you see today are virtually unchanged from those of countless previous generations. Sorting what they hunted or gathered during their own day's expeditions, organizing and processing the raw materials that will keep the group fed and equipped for survival, tending the fire with the careful attention it demands, feeding it just enough to maintain optimal heat and light without wasting precious fuel, soothing tired, cranky children who have spent the day confined to the cave's relative safety while adults risked their lives outside. The division of labor continues even after the day's main work is finished, because survival never stops requiring attention and effort. Those who stayed behind have their own essential tasks: maintaining the fire that keeps everyone alive, preparing tools that others will need tomorrow, watching children who represent the group's future, processing yesterday's finds into usable form. Someone is working on arrow shafts, carefully selecting straight pieces of wood and shaping them with stone tools into projectiles that could mean the difference between successful hunting and starvation. The work requires patience and skill, understanding wood grain and flexibility, knowledge of how different woods behave when shaped and used. Another person tends to the hide processing area, scraping and softening animal skins that will become clothing, blankets, containers, rope, all the essential equipment that makes survival possible in a world without manufactured goods. The work is physically demanding and requires specialized knowledge about treating different types of hide for different purposes. Someone else maintains the tool-making area, knapping stone implements and repairing damaged equipment. The sound of stone on stone rings through the cave as they work, the ancient percussion of human technology being created and maintained through techniques unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. The cave is a hive of purposeful activity focused on the fundamental requirements of staying alive. Everyone has work to do, skills to contribute, knowledge to apply to the endless challenges of survival in an unforgiving environment. There's no leisure time in the modern sense, no entertainment for its own sake, no activities that don't contribute directly to group survival. Your legs ache from miles of careful walking over uneven terrain, every step placed deliberately to avoid twisted ankles that could cripple you, painful falls that could cause injuries beyond the group's ability to treat, or unnecessary noise that might alert predators to your presence and bring death stalking in your wake. Your back is stiff from hours of bending over to examine plants, distinguishing edible species from poisonous lookalikes, digging up roots with implements that require awkward body positions, lifting and carrying increasingly heavy loads of gathered food that represent the difference between eating tomorrow and going hungry. Your shoulders burn from carrying the weight of full gathering pouches, the straps digging into muscles that have been worked to their limits by the day's exertions. Your hands are sore from gripping tools, scraped from reaching through thorny vegetation, stained with plant juices and soil from handling countless specimens of wild foods. But you're carrying food, and that makes every ache and pain worthwhile. That's victory in its most basic form. Not conquest or achievement in any abstract sense, but the simple, fundamental success of finding enough calories to keep yourself and your family alive for another day in a world that offers no guarantees of survival. You drop your gathering pouch by the fire with the satisfaction of someone who has earned their rest through productive effort that directly contributes to group survival. Each item that emerges from the pouch represents successful application of survival skills accumulated over years of experience, knowledge passed down through generations of ancestors who lived long enough to reproduce, and the basic human ability to find sustenance in a world that provides no room service. The thud of the full pouch hitting the ground near the fire brings immediate attention from others in the cave. Food is always important, but food brought home successfully after a dangerous day of foraging is cause for quiet celebration and immediate organization to ensure none of the day's gains are lost to spoilage or poor handling. Nuts to crack. A task that will occupy quiet moments throughout the evening, requiring patience and technique to extract the valuable nut meats without destroying them in the process. Each nut must be examined individually for quality and ripeness, positioned correctly for cracking using the right tools and technique, opened with just enough force to break the shell without pulverizing the precious contents. The cracking technique varies by nut species, each requiring its own approach developed through generations of experience. Hazelnuts crack differently than walnuts. Acorns require different handling than chestnuts. The tools must be selected and positioned correctly, the force applied at precisely the right angle and intensity. Too much force and you crush the nut meat along with the shell, turning valuable food into useless fragments mixed with inedible debris. Too little force and the shell refuses to break, wasting time and energy while the nuts remain inaccessible. The skill takes years to develop and represents accumulated knowledge about the mechanical properties of different nut species. Roots to clean. Soil must be scrubbed away carefully to avoid damaging the edible portions while removing potentially harmful dirt and debris that could cause illness. Some roots require peeling to remove bitter outer layers that would make the food unpalatable. Others need to be cut into pieces for faster cooking and easier consumption. All need to be sorted by type and quality to optimize their use. The cleaning process requires understanding which parts of each root are edible, how to remove inedible portions without wasting valuable food, how to prepare different species for different cooking methods. Some roots are better roasted, others boiled, still others eaten raw if properly prepared. Water for cleaning comes from containers carefully maintained throughout the day, precious liquid that must be used efficiently because fetching more requires another dangerous trip outside the cave's safety. The cleaning water itself becomes valuable after use, containing nutrients leached from the roots and suitable for drinking if no fresher water is available. Leaves to sort. Medicinal herbs separated from food plants according to their intended uses. Damaged specimens discarded to prevent contamination or reduced efficacy. Remaining materials organized for different preparation methods that will extract maximum benefit from each plant. Some leaves will be dried for future use, requiring careful arrangement in areas with proper airflow and protection from moisture that could cause rot or mold. Others will be cooked fresh with tonight's meal, providing vitamins and flavors that transform simple sustenance into something approaching actual cuisine. Still others will be processed into poultices for treating current ailments, crushed and mixed with fat or other carriers to create topical medicines for wounds, rashes, or muscle pain. The preparation methods have been refined over countless generations, each technique proven through practical application in real medical situations. The sorting requires detailed knowledge of plant identification, medicinal properties, and preparation techniques. Mistakes could result in ineffective treatment, wasted resources, or even poisoning if toxic plants are accidentally included with medicinal ones. The responsibility weighs heavily on those entrusted with the group's health care. The hunters are back too, and judging by the rich, mouth-watering smell of cooking meat that fills the cave, they did very well today. The aroma tells its own story of success. Fresh meat roasting over open flames, fat rendering and dripping into the fire where it sizzles and pops, sending savory smoke throughout the cave, and triggering hunger responses developed over millions of years of evolution. The scent is complex and layered, revealing details about the hunt's success to those experienced enough to read the olfactory information. The type of meat, its freshness, the cooking method being used, even the hunter's mood can be determined by someone skilled in interpreting the subtle variations in cooking aromas. Fresh meat has a clean, bright smell very different from preserved or aged meat. The fat content affects how the meat cooks and smells, with well-fed animals producing richer aromas than lean, stressed prey. The cooking technique, roasting, boiling, smoking, each produces distinctive scent signatures that experienced cave dwellers can identify immediately. A deer, maybe even two, based on the quantity of meat visible around the fire and the general mood of quiet satisfaction among the hunters as they move about their post-hunt tasks. Enough for everyone to eat well tonight, with substantial leftovers to smoke or dry for the inevitable days when hunting fails, and the group must depend on stored provisions to survive. The successful hunt represents more than just food. It's validation of the hunter's skills and strategies, proof that the group's survival systems are functioning effectively, insurance against future hunger when game becomes scarce, or weather prevents hunting expeditions. The psychological impact of hunting success extends far beyond simple nutrition, but success also brings its own challenges and responsibilities. A large kill means a great deal of work processing the meat before decomposition begins and valuable protein is lost to spoilage. Every part of the animal must be utilized efficiently: choice cuts for immediate consumption, tougher portions for drying and long-term storage, organs for their concentrated nutrients and medicinal properties. Bones must be processed for marrow extraction and tool making. Hide must be prepared for clothing and equipment. Sinews must be extracted for thread and binding material. Even hooves and antlers have uses in tool making and various practical applications. Nothing can be wasted when resources are precious and procurement is dangerous. The work must be completed quickly before bacterial action begins decomposing the meat, requiring coordination between multiple group members with different specialized skills. Someone handles the butchering with expert knowledge of animal anatomy. Someone else tends the drying fires with understanding of proper smoking techniques. Another prepares the hide for processing using methods developed over generations. Everyone has a role in maximizing the value extracted from the hunter's success, turning a dead animal into maximum food, clothing, tools, and other essential materials. The processing becomes a community activity that reinforces social bonds while accomplishing essential survival work. The hunters themselves show the signs of their successful but challenging day: mud and blood on their clothing from close encounters with dangerous prey, fatigue from hours of tracking and coordinating attacks, satisfaction from successful application of skills that kept the group fed and alive. Their weapons bear the evidence of use: spear points dulled or chipped from contact with bone and hide, shafts possibly cracked from the stress of impact, bindings loosened from the violent forces involved in bringing down large prey animals. The equipment will need attention and repair before it can be trusted in another hunt. But there's also the unmistakable aura of success about them, the confidence that comes from proving once again that human intelligence and cooperation can overcome the physical advantages of larger, stronger, better armed prey animals. They've demonstrated that the group's survival strategies work, that their skills remain sharp, that they can continue providing for their families and community. Dinner preparation becomes a community activity, with multiple people contributing different elements to the evening meal that will be the day's major social event, as well as its primary nutrition. The fresh meat forms the centerpiece, but the day's gathered foods provide essential variety and nutrients that meat alone cannot supply. The preparation involves more than simple cooking. It's a social ritual that reinforces group bonds, celebrates the day's successes, and provides opportunity for sharing information and planning future activities. Everyone contributes something to the meal, whether ingredients, labor, or expertise in specific preparation techniques. Children help with simple tasks under adult supervision, learning food preparation skills they'll need for their own survival while contributing to the group effort according to their abilities. The elderly provide guidance and knowledge about optimal cooking methods, seasoning techniques, and the cultural traditions that transform eating from mere survival into something approaching civilization. Dinner itself is slow and methodical, a deliberate process that maximizes both nutrition and satisfaction from the available food. In a world where the next meal is never guaranteed, eating becomes a conscious act of appreciation and careful consumption designed to extract maximum benefit from every bite. Meat roasted on carefully prepared sticks over the open flame, the fat sizzling and popping as it renders, filling the cave with aromas that trigger powerful hunger responses and create anticipation for the feast to come. The cooking technique is simple but effective, perfected through countless generations of trial and error by people whose lives depended on getting it right. The meat is positioned at exactly the right distance from the flames to cook evenly without burning. The distance adjusted as the fire's heat fluctuates and the meat's surface changes during cooking. Rotation is regular and systematic to ensure uniform heating and prevent any portion from overcooking while others remain raw. Testing for doneness requires sensory skills developed through years of experience. The look of properly cooked meat, the sound of fat rendering, the smell that indicates optimal preparation. There are no thermometers or timers, just accumulated knowledge about how meat should look, smell, and sound when it's ready to eat safely. Bits of wild garlic get thrown onto the coals for flavor, their sharp, pungent aroma mixing with the meat scents to create something approaching actual cuisine rather than mere sustenance. These small additions transform basic survival eating into something that provides pleasure as well as nutrition, demonstrating that even in the harshest circumstances, humans seek to improve their experience through whatever means available. The garlic also provides practical benefits beyond flavor: antimicrobial compounds that help prevent food poisoning, vitamins that supplement the meat's nutritional profile, digestive aids that help the body process the heavy protein load. Traditional food combinations often reflect practical nutritional wisdom developed through generations of experience. Other gathered foods are incorporated into the meal according to their properties and preparation requirements. Some roots are roasted directly in the coals, their skins protecting the flesh from burning while the heat transforms starches into more digestible forms. Others are boiled in containers made from animal hide, a technique that allows cooking without metal pots. Nuts are cracked and distributed, their rich fats providing concentrated energy and essential fatty acids often lacking in lean game meat. Berries are saved for the end of the meal, their natural sugars providing a dessert-like conclusion to the serious business of consuming calories for survival. There's no cutlery in the modern sense, just hands calloused from constant use and stone knives sharp enough to slice through tough meat and gristle with efficiency that modern utensils might envy. Eating becomes a tactile experience that connects you directly with your food in ways that modern dining rarely allows. Each texture and temperature perceived directly through fingers that have learned to handle hot foods safely. You chew carefully, not from politeness or social convention, but from necessity, working your strong jaw muscles to break down tough fibers and extract maximum nutrition from every bite. The chewing is deliberate and thorough because proper mechanical breakdown of food is essential for digestion and nutrient absorption. Savoring every morsel because you don't know when the next big meal will come, when hunting will fail, and the group will be reduced to nibbling stored nuts and dried berries while hoping the preserved meat lasts until game becomes available again. Each bite is appreciated fully, without distraction or hurry. The taste is rich and complex in ways that modern meat rarely achieves. This is wild game, lean and flavorful from a natural diet and constant exercise, cooked simply over wood fires that add their own subtle flavors to the meat. No artificial additives or processing, no hormones or antibiotics, just the pure taste of animal protein that has sustained human civilization since its beginning. The texture varies throughout each piece of meat, different muscle groups providing different chewing experiences and flavor profiles. There's satisfaction in working through tough portions, accomplishment in extracting nutrition from every part of the animal, appreciation for the hunter's skill in providing this essential resource. Fat, when present, is especially prized for its concentrated energy and essential fatty acids. In a world where every calorie matters and energy-dense foods are precious, fat represents luxury and survival insurance combined. It's eaten with particular attention and gratitude. The social aspect of the meal is as important as the nutritional content. Sharing food reinforces group bonds, demonstrates commitment to mutual survival, and provides opportunity for the kind of relaxed interaction that strengthens the relationships essential for group cohesion. Conversations flow around practical matters. What each person discovered during the day, which areas proved productive for different types of food, what signs of danger were observed, what weather indicators suggest about tomorrow's prospects. Information sharing is constant because everyone's survival depends on collective knowledge and awareness. But there's also room for less practical interaction. Gentle teasing about minor mishaps during the day's work, appreciation for particularly successful finds or skillful actions, the kind of social bonding that makes survival groups into functioning communities rather than just collections of individuals competing for resources. After eating, when the immediate hunger has been satisfied and the urgent business of survival nutrition is complete, people begin to relax around the fire in the closest thing to leisure time that this lifestyle allows. This is the heart of your world, the center around which all other activities revolve, the focal point that transforms a group of individuals into a functioning community. The fire serves multiple purposes beyond basic warmth and light. It's the community center, the workshop, the social hub where information flows and relationships are maintained. Everyone gravitates toward it after completing their individual tasks, drawn by both physical comfort and social needs. Conversations are quiet, reflective, focused on the day's experiences and tomorrow's challenges. Information continues to be shared about what each person discovered, which areas proved productive, what dangers were encountered or signs of threat observed. The flow of knowledge is continuous because survival depends on collective intelligence and shared awareness. But now, the information sharing takes on a more relaxed character, with time for detailed explanations, questions for clarification, speculation about patterns and trends that might affect future activities. The pressure of immediate survival needs gives way to more thoughtful analysis and planning. A child leans against their mother, half asleep but still absorbing the sounds and rhythms of adult conversation. Even very young children are part of the information network, listening to discussions that will gradually build their own survival knowledge base through constant exposure to adult problem solving and planning. The child's presence adds another dimension to the evening's activities. The awareness that everything being discussed and decided affects not just current survival, but the future of the group. The knowledge and skills that will be passed down to the next generation of survivors. Someone checks tools with the methodical attention that survival demands, gently tapping stone against stone to sharpen an edge that might mean the difference between successful food preparation and dangerous equipment failure tomorrow. The quiet percussion of tool maintenance provides a rhythmic background to the evening's activities. The work is careful and precise, each tool examined for damage, wear, or deterioration that could compromise its effectiveness. Handles are checked for looseness, bindings tested for strength, cutting edges evaluated for sharpness and chip damage. Repairs are made immediately when possible, because tomorrow's survival might depend on having properly functioning equipment. A dull knife makes food preparation inefficient and potentially dangerous. A loose spear point could fail at the crucial moment during a hunt. A damaged container could spill precious gathered foods. Another group member works on repairing a tear in a hide garment with a bone needle and sinew thread, their movements careful and precise as they restore an essential piece of survival equipment. Clothing failures in this environment can be life-threatening, making repairs a priority that can't be delayed until convenient. The repair work requires skill and patience developed through years of practice with primitive materials and tools. Stitching must be strong enough to withstand hard use while remaining flexible enough for comfortable movement. Every stitch is placed deliberately, the thread tension adjusted for maximum strength, the repair designed to distribute stress and prevent further tearing. The bone needle itself represents significant technological achievement. Carefully shaped from animal bone, polished smooth, pierced with a hole small enough to use but large enough for thread. Creating such tools requires specialized knowledge and considerable skill. The sinew thread is equally sophisticated, made from animal connective tissue processed to create strong, flexible cordage. The preparation involves cleaning, drying, and separating the sinew into individual fibers that can be twisted together into thread of various thicknesses. Someone else tends to hide processing, working brain matter into animal skin to soften it for clothing and equipment. The process is labor-intensive and requires specific knowledge about treating different types of hide for different purposes. The brain tanning creates leather that's soft, flexible, and water-resistant. Others work on cordage production, twisting plant fibers into rope and string needed for various survival applications. The work is repetitive but essential because rope has countless uses in a technology-dependent survival situation. Binding tools, constructing shelters, securing loads, creating snares and traps. The evening's work continues the day's survival activities in a more relaxed atmosphere, but the focus remains on practical necessities. There's no entertainment for its own sake, no activities that don't contribute directly to group survival and well-being. Stories start up gradually, emerging from the quiet conversations like flowers blooming in the firelight. Not fairy tales or abstract entertainment, but family history, group memory, the accumulated wisdom of survival passed down through generations of ancestors who faced the same challenges and somehow managed to live long enough to reproduce and teach their children. Tales of brutal winters when stored food ran out and the group survived on nothing but determination, careful rationing, and the kind of mutual support that makes the difference between group survival and group extinction. Stories of how previous generations dealt with extended periods of starvation, what foods they found when everything else was gone, how they maintained morale during the darkest times. Close calls with predators that could have ended in disaster, but were avoided through quick thinking, cooperation, and sometimes sheer luck that might have been skill in disguise. Stories of encounters with cave lions, short-faced bears, dire wolves, and other predators that no longer exist, but once posed constant threats to human survival. Hunts that saved everyone from starving during lean periods when other food sources failed completely. Tales of tracking skills that led to successful hunts when failure would have meant death. Of hunting strategies that overcame the physical advantages of larger, stronger, better armed prey animals. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're lessons in survival, case studies in problem solving, examples of what works and what doesn't when your life depends on making the right decisions under extreme pressure. Kids listen with wide eyes, absorbing information that might someday save their lives or the lives of their families. The stories are also tests of memory and attention, with children expected to remember details that might prove crucial in future situations. The telling becomes a form of education, with adults checking to ensure important information is being absorbed and understood correctly. Adults nod along, remembering their own experiences with similar challenges, adding details or corrections that refine the accuracy of the group's collective memory. The stories become living documents, constantly updated and refined to maintain their relevance and educational value. Sometimes the stories spark discussions about current situations, with parallels drawn between past challenges and present circumstances. The historical perspective helps put current problems in context and suggests proven solutions that worked for previous generations. The storytelling also serves important social functions beyond education and entertainment. It reinforces group identity and shared values, celebrating successful survival strategies while honoring the memory of ancestors whose wisdom enabled the current generation's existence. The stories bind the group together through shared narrative and common purpose, creating a sense of continuity that extends back through time and forward into an uncertain future. They provide psychological comfort during difficult times and inspire confidence in the group's ability to overcome current challenges. As the fire burns lower, carefully tended to maintain optimal heat and light, without wasting precious fuel that must last through the long, cold night, the light softens throughout the cave. The flames dance and flicker, creating moving shadows that transform the rough stone walls into a constantly changing canvas of light and darkness. Shadows dance on the rough stone walls, flickering over ancient paintings, bison and deer and mammoth, handprints left by ancestors who did this exact same thing thousands of years before you were born. The cave paintings aren't just decoration or primitive art. They're part of the group's cultural heritage, visual reminders of successful hunting techniques, seasonal animal behavior patterns, and spiritual beliefs that help make sense of an often senseless world. The images connect current occupants with countless generations of previous survivors who sheltered in this same space, who warmed themselves by fires built in this same spot, who faced the same daily challenges of finding food and avoiding death in an unforgiving environment. The continuity is profound and comforting. The dancing firelight brings the painted animals to life, making them seem to move and breathe in the shifting shadows. It's easy to imagine that the spirits of successful hunts past are present in the cave, offering guidance and protection to current inhabitants who continue the ancient human tradition of survival through cooperation and shared knowledge. Some of the paintings show hunting scenes, groups of humans with spears surrounding massive animals, demonstrating techniques that are still used today. Others depict animal behavior patterns that help hunters understand when and where different prey species are likely to be found. The images serve as visual textbooks for essential survival knowledge. Handprints scattered among the animal figures represent individual humans who once lived and died in this space, people whose names are lost to time but whose experiences shaped the accumulated wisdom that keeps your group alive. Each print is a signature, a claim of existence, a connection across vast spans of time. The pigments used in the paintings, ochre reds, charcoal blacks, clay yellows, are the same materials available today, mixed with animal fat or plant oils to create lasting colors that have survived for millennia. The technology is simple but effective, proving that sophisticated artistic expression is possible even with primitive materials. Creating the paintings required considerable time and effort, resources that could have been devoted to direct survival activities. The fact that ancient humans chose to invest in artistic expression demonstrates that even in the harshest circumstances, there's something essentially human about the need to create, to express, to leave marks that say, "We were here." The paintings also serve practical functions beyond their aesthetic and spiritual value. They help identify the cave as human territory, warning potential intruders that this space is claimed and defended. They provide conversation starters for the evening stories, visual references that help maintain cultural memory across generations. Children study the paintings with intense focus, learning to recognize different animal species, understanding the relationships between predator and prey, absorbing lessons about hunting techniques and animal behavior. The images become teaching tools that supplement verbal instruction with visual information. Gradually, as full darkness settles outside the cave mouth, and the fire provides the only light in an increasingly cold and dangerous world, everyone begins settling onto their sleeping areas. The transition from active day to restful night is gradual, marked by decreasing conversation, more frequent yawns, and the quiet rustling of people preparing for sleep. The sleeping arrangements reflect both practical considerations and social hierarchy developed over years of group living. The elderly and children are positioned closest to the fire, where they receive maximum benefit from the heat and light, while remaining near the adults most capable of protecting them if danger threatens during the night. The strongest fighters sleep in positions where they can respond quickly to threats from the cave entrance or from the deeper passages that lead into the mountain's interior. Their weapons are kept within easy reach, ready for immediate use if predators or hostile humans attempt to enter the group's territory. Pregnant women and nursing mothers receive preferential positions near the fire, their increased nutritional and warmth needs recognized by the entire group. Their welfare affects not just their own survival, but the future of the community, making their care a collective responsibility. The sleeping surface preparation is a ritual that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. Each person arranges their bedding materials, dried grass, moss, animal fur, to create the most comfortable sleeping surface possible given the available materials and the hard stone floor of the cave. The bedding is checked for dampness that could conduct heat away from the body during the night, potentially causing hypothermia that could kill before morning. Wet materials are replaced or moved to drying areas near the fire. The arrangement is adjusted to minimize contact with cold stone while maximizing insulation value. Children nestle close to parents, seeking warmth and comfort as much as security from the dangers that prowl in darkness beyond the cave's protection. The physical closeness serves multiple purposes: shared body heat for warmth conservation, emotional bonding that strengthens family units, and protection for the most vulnerable group members during the dangerous hours of darkness. The parent-child sleeping arrangements also facilitate nursing for infants and provide opportunities for quiet teaching moments as children ask questions about the day's events or express fears about the night ahead. These intimate conversations help pass down knowledge and values that can't be transmitted in group settings. Family groups cluster together, creating micro-communities within the larger cave population. These smaller units provide additional security and support while maintaining the individual identities that prevent the group from becoming an undifferentiated mass of people competing for resources. The oldest and youngest are kept nearest to the fire, positioned to receive maximum benefit from the heat and light, while remaining close to the adults most capable of protecting them if danger threatens during the night. Age brings wisdom, but also vulnerability, and the group's protective instincts extend to those who have contributed to collective survival over many years. Elderly group members often suffer from joints stiffened by years of hard physical labor, injuries that never healed properly due to limited medical knowledge, and the general wear that comes from a lifetime of survival in harsh conditions. The warmth of the fire provides some relief from chronic pain and stiffness. The youngest children face different vulnerabilities: immune systems not yet fully developed, inability to generate sufficient body heat, lack of understanding about nighttime dangers. Positioning them near the fire and close to protective adults maximizes their chances of surviving until morning. You wrap yourself in your hide blanket, feeling its weight and warmth settle over you like a familiar embrace that connects you with the animal that provided this essential survival tool. The hide represents hours of skilled work, hunting the animal, processing the skin through complex tanning procedures, softening the leather through repeated treatment, treating it for water resistance and durability. It's simultaneously practical equipment and comfort object, providing both physical and psychological security that makes sleep possible in an environment where relaxation could mean death. The weight of the hide is reassuring, substantial enough to provide real warmth while conforming to your body shape for maximum comfort and heat retention. The texture tells the story of its creation and use, soft from repeated handling and careful maintenance, broken in through countless nights of providing protection against cold and fear. Areas of wear show where your body has pressed against the hide night after night, creating a perfect fit that no manufactured blanket could match. The hide still carries faint scents of the tanning process, brain matter used for softening, smoke from the drying process, plant oils used for waterproofing. Under the technique of using body heat to warm bedding is essential for surviving cold nights without external heat sources. Your clothing provides the base layer of insulation, designed to trap warm air close to your skin while allowing moisture to escape. Outside, the world is dark, cold, and full of things that want to eat you. All these sounds serve as reminders that the cave represents a small island of safety in an ocean of danger that extends in every direction beyond the reach of firelight. The contrast between interior safety and exterior threat is absolute and unforgiving. The temperature outside drops steadily through the night, reaching levels that would kill an unprotected human within hours. Frost forms on vegetation, water sources freeze over, and the ground becomes hard as stone. The cave's interior temperature, while cold by modern standards, remains survivable thanks to the fire and the insulation provided by stone walls. Wind patterns shift as air masses move and temperature gradients change, creating sounds that range from gentle whispers to ominous moaning that can trigger primal fear responses in humans whose ancestors learned to associate certain sounds with approaching danger. Predator activity increases during the night hours, with most dangerous animals doing their serious hunting after dark, when their superior night vision and hearing give them overwhelming advantages over human prey. The knowledge that death stalks in the darkness beyond the cave entrance is never far from consciousness. But in here, you have fire, the fundamental technology that makes human civilization possible. The difference between being another animal struggling for survival and being human beings capable of creating safe spaces in hostile environments. The flames provide warmth against killing cold, light against dangerous darkness, and protection against most predators who instinctively fear fire. The fire is more than just a tool. It's the center of human community, the focal point around which all other survival activities revolve. Without fire, the group would be helpless against the night, unable to cook food properly, unable to work on essential tasks after dark, unable to create the psychological comfort that makes group cohesion possible. Maintaining the fire requires constant attention and careful resource management. Someone must stay awake throughout the night to feed it properly, ensuring it never dies completely while avoiding waste of precious fuel. The fire mistakes could result in the fire dying out, leaving the group vulnerable to cold and predators. You have family, biological relatives and chosen companions bound together by mutual dependence and shared purpose. People who will share their food when you're hungry, defend you when you're threatened, care for you when you're sick or injured. The social bonds make survival possible for creatures who are individually weak but collectively strong. The family relationships extend beyond immediate blood relations to include the entire group that shares the cave and the daily struggle for survival. These people have proven their reliability through countless shared dangers, demonstrated their commitment to mutual survival through actions more meaningful than words. When one person fails, others compensate without complaint or resentment. When resources are scarce, they're shared according to need rather than individual contribution. When knowledge is needed, it's freely provided without expectation of direct reciprocal benefit. The cooperation isn't altruistic. It's practical recognition that individual survival depends absolutely on group success. The bonds are strengthened through shared experiences that no outsider could fully understand. The terror of facing large predators together, the satisfaction of successful hunts that feed everyone, the relief of finding shelter during dangerous storms, the grief of losing group members to accident or illness. These relationships provide psychological comfort that makes the hardships bearable. Knowing the group becomes more than the sum of its parts. You have a community that depends on you, and on whom you depend. A network of mutual obligation and support that distributes survival risks across multiple individuals, ensuring that temporary failure by one person doesn't doom the entire group. When one person's skills fail, others provide backup. When resources are found, they're shared for collective benefit. The community isn't held together by laws or governments or abstract principles that might fail under pressure, but by the simple recognition that survival requires cooperation. Everyone understands that individual welfare depends absolutely on group success. That selfish behavior threatens everyone's survival. That mutual support is the price of continued existence. The enforcement is social rather than legal, but effective because exclusion from the group means death in the wilderness. Decision-making is consensus-based but efficient, with leadership roles rotating based on the specific challenges being faced. The best hunter leads during hunting expeditions. The most experienced gatherer guides foraging activities. The oldest and wisest provide counsel on long-term planning and conflict resolution. Your eyelids grow heavy as the day's exertions catch up with you, and the fire's warmth relaxes muscles tensed by constant vigilance. The transition from wakefulness to sleep is gradual, marked by increasing difficulty keeping your eyes open and decreasing awareness of the cave's activities. The fatigue is comprehensive. Physical exhaustion from miles of walking over difficult terrain. Mental fatigue from hours of constant attention to potential dangers. emotional stress from the daily pressure of survival in an unforgiving environment. Sleep becomes a necessary restoration process that can't be delayed or avoided. But sleep also brings vulnerability, reducing your ability to respond to threats that might develop during the night. The trade-off between necessary rest and constant vigilance is managed through the group's watch system, ensuring someone is always alert while others restore their energy for tomorrow's challenges. These sounds represent safety and continuity, the eternal human rhythms of breathing, sleeping, tending fire, caring for children that have filled human dwellings for hundreds of thousands of years. They connect you with an unbroken chain of ancestors who faced the same challenges and somehow found the strength to continue. The baby's presence is particularly meaningful, proof that the group is surviving well enough to reproduce, that there's hope for the future despite current hardships, that life continues its eternal cycle even in the face of constant danger. Children represent the group's genetic and cultural future. The fire will be tended throughout the night by rotating watches, its light and warmth maintained against the cold darkness pressing in from outside. The watchers will feed it carefully, conserving fuel while ensuring it never dies completely. They'll listen for unusual sounds, watch for signs of danger, maintain the vigilance that keeps the group safe during vulnerable sleeping hours. The watch duty requires staying alert despite fatigue, distinguishing between normal night sounds and potential threats, maintaining the fire without waking sleeping group members unnecessarily. It's a responsibility that rotates through capable adults, sharing the burden while ensuring continuous protection. The watchers also serve as the group's early warning system, positioned to detect approaching storms, predator activity, or signs of rival human groups in the area. Their alertness could mean the difference between having time to prepare for threats and being caught helpless and unprepared. You made it through another day. A simple statement that represents enormous complexity in this environment, where survival is never guaranteed and death is always nearby. You found food despite competing with other predators and scavengers, avoided predators despite being physically inferior to most of them, maintained equipment despite lacking modern tools and materials. You strengthened social bonds that make group survival possible, added to the collective knowledge that keeps everyone alive, and prepared for tomorrow's challenges while dealing with today's immediate survival needs. The accomplishment is real and significant, though it might seem minimal by modern standards. The success required applying skills developed over years of experience, knowledge passed down through generations of survivors, and the basic human abilities of cooperation, tool use, and environmental adaptation that distinguish humans from other animals. Every day survived adds to your experience and increases your chances of surviving future days. And in the Ice Age, that's the best you can ask for. Not happiness in the modern sense of pleasure-seeking and entertainment, not comfort or convenience or the amenities that modern humans take for granted, just the basic satisfaction of having earned another day of life through skill, effort, and cooperation with others facing the same challenges. The knowledge that you've contributed to your family's survival and your community's welfare, that you've honored the legacy of ancestors who made your existence possible through their own survival efforts, that you've passed down knowledge and skills that will help future generations face similar challenges. There's deep satisfaction in the direct connection between effort and survival, between skill and success, between cooperation and collective welfare. The feedback is immediate and unambiguous. Good decisions lead to survival. Poor decisions lead to death. Cooperation enables success that would be impossible individually. The cave settles into the quiet rhythms of night, with sleeping humans protected by fire and stone walls, and the watchful presence of those whose turn it is to guard against darkness and its dangers. The sounds become softer, conversations fade to whispers, then to silence as exhaustion overcomes the social impulse to share the day's experiences. Outside, the ancient world continues its eternal cycles of predator and prey, life and death, survival and extinction that have shaped evolution since complex life began. The harsh mathematics of natural selection continue operating, but inside the cave, human intelligence and cooperation have created a space where survival rates improve dramatically. But inside this small circle of light and warmth, humanity persists through another night, carrying forward the knowledge and determination that will eventually build cities and civilizations and reach for the stars. The progression isn't obvious from this primitive perspective, but the foundation is being laid through every successful day of survival. For now, though, it's enough to have shelter that protects against weather and predators, fire that provides warmth and light, family that offers support and companionship, and the promise of another dawn that will bring new opportunities for survival and success. The present moment is sufficient unto itself, warm, safe, fed, surrounded by people who understand the challenges and share the burdens. Tomorrow will bring new tests of survival skills and group cooperation, but tomorrow is tomorrow's concern. Sleep comes gradually, naturally, bringing rest to bodies exhausted by the day's labor and minds that have processed countless survival decisions throughout the waking hours. The rest is earned through productive effort, deserved through successful contribution to group welfare, necessary for tomorrow's continuation of the eternal human struggle for survival. Dreams, when they come, are likely to be filled with images of the day's experiences, forests and streams, animals and plants, the eternal human quest for food and safety and belonging that motivates all survival behavior. The subconscious mind processes the day's information, consolidating memories and preparing for future challenges. Some dreams might replay the day's successes, reinforcing positive survival behaviors through subconscious repetition. Others might explore potential dangers, helping the mind prepare for threats that haven't yet materialized but could develop in the future. The dream content reflects the preoccupations of survival, finding food, avoiding predators, maintaining equipment, strengthening social bonds, preparing for seasonal changes. Even in sleep, the mind continues working on the problems that define existence in this harsh environment. And tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities, new tests of the skills and knowledge that keep small groups of humans alive in a world that offers no guarantees of survival. Weather might change, requiring adaptation of survival strategies. Game animals might move to different areas, forcing adjustment of hunting plans. Equipment will need maintenance and replacement as constant use takes its toll on primitive tools and materials. Social relationships will require attention as the stress of survival creates friction between group members. Food supplies will need replenishment as stored resources are consumed. But those are tomorrow's concerns. Tonight, you're safe, warm, fed, and surrounded by the people who make survival possible through their skills, knowledge, and commitment to mutual support. The fire burns, the cave provides shelter, the group maintains its vigilance against the dangers that surround but cannot penetrate this small sanctuary of human civilization. In the end, that's what human civilization is built on. Not grand abstract ideas or technological achievements that come much later, but the simple willingness of people to take care of each other, share resources according to need rather than power, and work together against odds that would overwhelm any individual. Everything else that humans will eventually accomplish, agriculture, cities, writing, science, art, space exploration, grows from this fundamental foundation of cooperation and mutual support in the face of environmental challenges. The cave dwellers can't see the future they're making possible, but they're living the essential human values that make all future progress possible. The fire burns on through the night, tended by careful hands, providing the light and warmth that make human community possible in a world where individual survival is nearly impossible. And in its dancing flames, you can see the reflection of every fire that has ever burned in every human dwelling throughout history, all connected by the unbroken chain of survival that links you with the past and extends toward an uncertain but hopeful future where human intelligence, cooperation, and determination will eventually overcome challenges that make today's survival struggles look simple by comparison. But that future begins here, in this cave, with this fire, with these people, with this night's successful completion of another day in the endless human story of survival against the odds. Sleep well. Tomorrow will come soon enough, bringing its own tests and opportunities and chances to prove once again that humans can survive and thrive through cooperation, intelligence, and the refusal to give up in the face of overwhelming challenges. The last conscious thought before sleep takes you might be gratitude for the food found today, for the dangers avoided, for the shelter that protects against the killing cold, for the people who share both the risks and the rewards of survival in this ancient world where every day is both an ending and a beginning. So now, as you lie there, warm in your modern bed, maybe listening to the soft hum of a heater or the gentle tick of a clock, think about that cave, the flickering firelight on stone walls, the smell of smoke clinging to hides, the sound of 20 breathing bodies pressed close for warmth. They didn't have electricity or running water, no screens, no emails, no busy schedules, just the constant challenge of finding food, staying warm, and keeping everyone safe. But they also had things we forget: deep knowledge of the land, a bond with their small community so strong it meant life or death, a daily rhythm that demanded attention to the real physical world around them. When the fire burned low and the cave fell silent, they lay down on scratchy grass beds with nothing but animal hides to keep them warm. But they also lay down knowing they'd shared the work, the food, the stories, that they'd survived one more day. So as you close your eyes now, imagine that warmth, the gentle glow of embers, the steady breathing of people you trust all around you. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. Because for all our technology, our bright lights, our comforts, we're still them, still human, still looking for safety, belonging, warmth, and the promise that tomorrow we'll wake up and try again. You can rest now. You're safe. You're part of the same long story that started around those ancient fires. Sleep well.